Chapter 278, My Cultivation with the Fairy? I'm 10 years old this year. Sheila bit off half of her candied hawthorn on a stick in one bite. Then she offered it to Xiaoxia. Auntie Xiu, Daddy said when guests come over we should treat them well, so I want to treat you to candied hawthorn. Xiaoxia was slightly taken aback. She couldn't help but think back to her own childhood. Once upon a time she, like the little girl in front of her, had a lively face and loved to eat candied hawthorn. Her eyes curved into a smile, and a gentle look appeared on her face. She opened her enticing rosy lips and took a bite from the half-red fruit on the little girl's stick. Really delicious. Xiaoxia touched Lu Xiao's head and said, her quiet state of mind rippling slightly. This reinforced her certainty that Lu Changxing was her chance to break through delusions and advance her state of mind. A glowing, moon-white jade pendant appeared in her hand, which she handed to Lu Sheila. This is a gift from your auntie. Lu Sheila did not accept it immediately but looked toward her father. Since it's a gift from auntie you should keep it, Lu Changxing spoke. He could tell that this was not an ordinary jade pendant, it was a spirit jade. As for its value he couldn't discern it at a glance. But since it was for his child he didn't decline it. He also knew that by giving a gift to his child, Xiaoxia was expressing her gratitude for bothering him. Thank you Auntie Xiao. The little girl gleefully accepted the jade pendant. She saw that the jade pendant was translucent and sparkling, very pretty, and she liked it very much. She then talked to Xiaoxia even more warmly, asking if Xiaoxia had eaten and if she would like to go out and play. In the face of the little girl's enthusiasm, Xiaoxia did not decline and went with the flow. Seeing this, Lu Changxing didn't say anything. He just let his daughter take her out for a chat and a walk. What exactly is the situation with this Xiao Daoist friend? Watching Lu Sheila taking Xiaoxia away, Lu Changxing narrowed his eyes and muttered to himself. From their conversation along the way, he was almost certain that there was something off about Xiaoxia. Asking him for company was definitely not as simple as she claimed, just wandering the mortal world with no particular destination in mind. She must have some kind of purpose in mind concerning him. He believed that Xiaoxia's descent from the mountain was indeed to wander the world, tempering her heart in the mortal realm, looking for an opportunity to break through. But to say she had no destination and asked him for company felt far-fetched to Lu Changxing. After all, as a disciple of a nascent soul immortal from the Qingyun sect, how could she have no destination when going out for training experiences? She would definitely have had someone plan her journey or even have company. Moreover, he felt that Hong Yi might be more suitable than himself for this kind of wandering temperament. This reason felt strange to Lu Changxing but was, at most, passable. But along the way Lu Changxing had been observing Xiaoxia closely. He noticed that Xiaoxia's gaze often lingered on him. And he keenly perceived that her eyes and demeanor were changing. This change was subtle and he couldn't describe it exactly. If he had to say, it was that she was not so cold, not so indifferent anymore. Today when he and Hong Yi went to meet the three of them, he saw Xiaoxia's first glance and noticed the cool, holy aura about her. Like a fairy from the heavens, calm and indifferent, unapproachable. It was still the case when they arrived at Rui Building. Only after a long conversation did Xiaoxia's indifference gradually recede a bit. At that moment, Lu Changxing realized that Xiaoxia was sizing him up but didn't think too much of it. After she proposed that he accompany her, Lu Changxing became more cautious, so all along the way by observing, he could confirm that Xiaoxia must have some purpose for him. Wait a minute, when she's with me her expressions and attitudes change. Could this be? Lu Changxing's mouth twitched. He suddenly felt like it might be akin to a goddess showing interest in someone, only then letting go of her usual aloofness. Although I'm quite charming now, it couldn't be this easy, Lu Changxing stroked his chin. He was someone with a fair sense of self-awareness. He knew well that his charisma could be quite lethal to the opposite sex. But it was unlikely to make Xiaoxia, a fairy of her stature, fall head over heels and take the initiative to throw herself at him. Could it be? A flash of enlightenment struck Lu Changxing's mind. His mental spirit stirred, tuning into the peach blossom goose spiritual essence within his forehead. He wanted to see if this thing was once again stirring up romantic fortunes for him. After all, his relationship with Xiaoxia was nothing extraordinary. Now that she had come down to wander the mortal realm, with such an unusual behavior, he couldn't help but speculate if romantic fortune was at play. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A faint activity arose from the peach blossom goo between his brows, conveying a sense of awareness. As if to tell Lu Changxing, it was indeed about romantic fortune. Good heavens. Receiving this feedback from the peach blossom goo, Lu Changxing inwardly exclaimed in surprise. Understanding that Xiao Xia's abnormal behavior was indeed related to romantic fortune, he was at a loss for words for a moment. But it also eased his mind quite a bit. Knowing that Xiao Xia's request to accompany him carried no ill intent, no ulterior motive. Nevertheless, this romantic fortune is not so easy to deal with. Lu Changxing took a deep breath and exhaled softly. To say he harbored no thoughts about Xiao Xia would be impossible. After all, this fairy Xiao was not only exquisitely beautiful but also possessed a fourth-grade spiritual root. She even had some kind of spiritual body. If she were just an ordinary inner sect disciple of the Qingyun sect, that would be one thing with some hope of a connection. But she wasn't just any disciple from the immortal sects. She was a disciple of a nascent soul immortal. With such status and identity, if he were to impregnate her and have children, chances are it would bring trouble. After all, being accepted as a disciple by a nascent soul immortal implies exceptional talent, and she would be entrusted with high expectations by the immortal sects, fully devoted to her cultivation. Chapter 279. My cultivation with the fairy? If I end up having several children, that would delay the prime of my early years. Qingyun sect might, for the sake of letting their disciples focus on cultivation and sever worldly ties, just sever me instead. By then what was supposed to be a streak of romantic luck would turn into a calamity. So Lu Changxing was very clear in his heart that a woman like Xiao Xia, he currently could not resist. Meanwhile, under the guidance of Lu Xile, Xiao Xia met the other wives, concubines and children of Lu Changxing. She knew that Lu Changxing had married numerous wives and concubines, and had many children. But when she actually saw so many wives and children all at once, she still felt a bit surprised. However, she didn't know that these 20-plus children were only a small part. After separating from Lu Changxing and spending some time chatting and playing with Lu Xile and a few children, Xiao Xia found her mindset gradually returning to tranquility and indifference. She reverted to her usual state of the supreme forgetful love technique. Is it really so? Xiao Xia murmured to herself, her eyes clear as water, detached and calm as she looked into the distance. She was almost certain that only Lu Changxing could help her see through illusions and break through to the next realm. As for how to see through them, she had some idea in her mind. When she was by Lu Changxing's side, her mental state was affected, causing the supreme forgetful love technique to operate automatically. If she could be unaffected in any way, keeping her heart tranquil and detached no matter what, she thought that would be seeing through the illusions and achieving a great state of mind. However, she still needed to continue to confirm this. In this manner, Xiao Xia stayed at the Lu residence. Lu Changxing had planned to return to Qingzhou Mountain after the gathering, but due to Xiao Xia's presence, he changed his plans. He spent his time taking Xiao Xia to wander around Rui Prefecture, observing the so-called afflictions of life and the chaos of the red dust. Lu Changxing himself didn't know what these afflictions and chaos specifically entailed. And Xiao Xia couldn't explain clearly either. So, considering that she came from a literary family and had entered Qingyun sect for cultivation at the age of 15, he decided to show her some of the suffering of life, the hardships of the lower class, like the women who were forced into brothels, the roadside vendors in the streets and alleys, the roughnecks, the beggars with disabilities, the dock workers who labored in hard and toilsome jobs, the tea houses, the wine lodges, the restaurants, patrons of all different stripes, the gangs of the Jianghu, killing and fighting over interests. One day Lu Changxing took Xiao Xia to a village in Rui Prefecture. It was a very poor and backward village. Yellow earth facing the sky, the mud roads pitted and uneven. Fields lined the sides of the road. The crops in the fields had been completely harvested. But one could still see some emaciated and frail farmers in ragged clothing with children, carrying baskets on their backs, picking up the grains missed during the harvest in the fields. Among them were some women who had just given birth, carrying infants who were crying for food, with faces of sheer exhaustion. When they saw Lu Changxing and Xiao Xia, fear and humility showed in their eyes, with stiff, ingratiating smiles. Sigh. Lu Changxing sighed deeply at the sight. He did not know how Xiao Xia's state of mind had been these days. But the hardships of this world genuinely made him feel a heavy heart. He felt somewhat relieved, apprehensive, and panicked. Fortunate to possess a spiritual root, he had initially obtained a celestial fate. He was able to go to Qingyun sect to participate in the immortal sect's examination. Otherwise, a peasant boy like him, even if he awakened his memories and had a system, would still face great difficulties. It would take an unknown amount of time, energy, and effort to struggle up from this lowly position. Xiao Daoist, have you gained anything in these past few days? Lu Changxing sighed lightly and asked Xiao Xia. Seeing all the hardships made him cherish his current life even more and gave him the motivation to keep striving. All living beings suffer, Xiao Xia said softly. These days she had seen much with Lu Changxing, and her heart was deeply touched, reaping no small gains. But she could feel that these were not greatly helpful for her own breakthrough. The main focus was still on Lu Changxing. However, through the days of being together, Xiao Xia's heart had also sunk into the influence of Lu Changxing. Whenever they came into close contact, Xiao Xia felt herself enveloped in a spring breeze that swayed her mental spirit, prompting the supreme forgetful love technique to activate. But she also realized that just this was not enough, not sufficient for her to see through illusion, for her mental state to break through. She knew in her heart that she needed to go further with Lu Changxing. Only by experiencing the so-called love trial could she truly refine her mental state, achieve great enlightenment, and see through illusion with the supreme forgetful love. Lu Daoist has worked hard these past few days, Xiao Xia looked at Lu Changxing and said. Her voice was no longer so cold but much gentler. Soon after, the two returned to Rui Prefecture to prepare for their visit to the Cultivation marketplace the next day. Night fell. Because they were leaving tomorrow, Lu Changxing naturally spent a good time with his wives and concubines. Meanwhile, Xiao Xia sat cross-legged in her room. Her mind was in turmoil. She couldn't fall asleep or enter a state of cultivation. Love trial. Xiao Xia understood that she had been refining her mental state and seeing through illusion with the help of Lu Changxing. Yet, at the same time, these days had also made her troubled by the cage that was Lu Changxing. Although her mental state had improved, she had sunk deeper and had to rely on the love trial for great enlightenment. She operated the supreme forgetful love technique and suppressed her distracting thoughts. She stepped out of her room, her skirt fluttering, landing on the roof and quietly gazed at the bright moon in the sky. The moonlight spilled over her, bathing her moon-white dress and flawless body, making her even more immaculate and noble, like the Guanghan fairy in the Moon Palace. The gentle night breeze lifted a corner of the moon-white dress, revealing the fairy's smooth, round legs, like ivory-white jade without an ounce of excess flesh, naturally perfect, unrivaled in grace and beauty. The wind also lifted the fairy's black hair. Strands of black hair and the moon-white dress swayed in the wind, dancing with the breeze, reflecting the owner's current mood and state of mind. Her bright, moon-like eyes gazed absently at a courtyard in the residence. Phew! Xiao Xia took a deep breath and slowly exhaled. She knew that without a mental realization she would never be able to refine the supreme forgetful love technique. Immediately, a look of determination appeared in her eyes as she floated towards Lu Changxing's courtyard. She was ready to tell him directly that she needed to experience the love trial to completely see through illusion, and not just to casually observe the myriad aspects of the world, amid the muddled and tumultuous mortal life. Chapter 280, Xiao Xia, so this is the love tribulation. _1 above the pitch-black night sky, a silver moon hung high. Its faint moonlight cascaded onto the pavilions and towers of the Lu family estate, as if draping them in a layer of silver gauze. The entire Lu family estate was engulfed in darkness and silence. The only exception was a courtyard within the inner house, still brightly lit. In the glow of frost-like radiance, a figure clad in white, resembling the celestial fairy of the bright moon above, drifted towards this courtyard, her sashes fluttering in the night breeze. Before even alighting, Xiao Xiyu, like the Guanghan fairy of the Moon Palace, suddenly heard a plaintive sound, sorrowful yet enchanting, filled with 1,000 graces. The sound caused Xiao Xiyu's exquisite features to slightly startle, and her heartbeat suddenly accelerated. This hastened pulse speeded the practice of her supreme forgetful love technique. What sound is this? Xiao Xiyu furrowed her pretty brows, somewhat perplexed in her heart. Why did such a simple sound cause such a throb within her? The supreme forgetful love technique ran its course, suppressing this inexplicable emotional pulse. She then followed the sound into a room within the courtyard. The shadows reflected by the window allowed her to instantaneously guess what was happening inside. This made her heart start thumping again. She realized her behavior was inappropriate. Her arrival was ill-timed. But a tremor of excitement surged within her, a tantalizing sensation, compelling her to channel a sliver of spiritual power into her beautiful eyes and peer through the window. Inside the chamber she saw several Lu family ladies she had met during the day with Lu Changxing. In an instant Xiao Xiyu felt as if struck by lightning. Her stunning face instantly flushed with crimson, almost letting out an alarmed cry. This single glance brought an unprecedented and intense impact to Xiao Xiyu. The Tao heart that had just been calmed by the supreme forgetful love technique exploded at this moment. Her Tao heart shuddered, and the supreme forgetful love technique nearly failed, causing her delicate body to momentarily weaken. At the age of 15, she had entered the immortal sects, embarking on a single-minded path of cultivation. Though she had heard of the matters between men and women, and had read some relevant books, she was still naively ignorant. Such scenes were foreign to her. Let alone such stimulating and shocking imagery. Under the moonlight, Xiao Shiyu's skin shone like luminous jade, reflecting with the cool moonlight. Her serene and holy visage, usually as cool as the 9 heavens' bright moon, was now flushed like the rosy dawn, a beauty beyond compare. Her emotions rose and fell tumultuously, leaving her dazed and at a loss. Could this be the emotional trial I'm to endure? Xiao Shiyu bit her lip lightly, the supreme forgetful love technique running at full speed, suppressing the roaring tides within her heart. Just now, the shock of the imagery she witnessed caused her heart to accelerate and her body to go weak. But simultaneously, the supreme forgetful love technique also spun wildly. The robust and impermeable barrier at her bottleneck seemed to subtly loosen at this moment. She faintly realized what her emotional trial was. Before this, she had only known that she must endure an emotional trial. That trial fell upon Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing was the opportunity for her breakthrough. But as for the specifics of the emotional trial, she herself was unclear. Because the word emotion is too broad. It could be familial love, friendship, romantic love, or the affection between a man and a woman. And each of these emotions can be divided into many types. In this moment she vaguely understood. It was about the emotions between a man and a woman. The emotions that include desire between a man and a woman. What she needed to do was suppress emotions, forget desires. Thus, to know emotions yet forget them, to have emotions yet remain detached. Upon realizing her emotional trial, Xiao Shiyu's eyes, as pure as the bright moon, flickered indecisively, trembling slightly. Not only was her heart in disarray, but her mind was also in chaos, feeling lost and dazed. And at the same time, inside the courtyard room, the diligently busy Lu Changxing acutely sensed a spying presence. He frowned slightly. Although his estate lacked a great formation for protection, there were protectors patrolling the outer estate, and a 9 netherhound guarding the inner estate. In the mortal world, it would be extremely difficult for any master to infiltrate. His gaze pierced through the doors and windows, looking outside. He immediately spotted a white silhouette as ethereal as a fairy. Xiao Shiyu? Lu Changxing looked at the white silhouette, somewhat surprised. He wondered what business the fairy Shiyu could have with him in the dead of night. Not cultivating or sleeping at night, did she come to chat or share her heart? However, seeing that the eavesdropper was Xiao Shiyu, not some malevolent figure, Lu Changxing couldn't help but feel reassured. Yet this moment of inaction caused his wife, Lu Lanshu, to suddenly feel abandoned. Her elegant features from the daytime, now flush and bewitching, looked back at her husband. Her half-lidded eyes brimming with allure, her voice soft and sultry, she asked, "My lord, what is it?" The 3 other wives also turned their gaze towards Lu Changxing. "It's nothing." Lu Changxing, noting Xiao Shiyu hurriedly departing as soon as he looked out, didn't dwell on it further. Presumably, Xiao Shiyu had some urgent matter with him to come at such a late hour, thus stumbling upon such a scene. Besides, he couldn't very well stop what he was doing now to go ask Xiao Shiyu what the matter was, right? Meanwhile, Xiao Shiyu, amidst her inner turmoil, sensed the gaze of Lu Changxing upon her. Even though she cultivated the supreme forgetful love technique and possessed a pure nature, unfamiliar with worldly affairs in such a situation, her heart couldn't help but flutter. Almost as if fleeing, she left the courtyard and floated back to her own. Returning to her room, Xiao Shiyu ran the supreme forgetful love technique swiftly, allowing her exquisite complexion to gradually return to its aloof coolness. But recalling that scene, she still felt a trembling deep within her soul, her delicate body burning with heat. So this is my emotional trial, no wonder I have always been unable to perfect the supreme forgetful love technique. My state of mind is still far from sufficient. Chapter 281, Xiao Xia, so this is the love tribulation. Xiao Xia murmured to herself. Without realizing it, she reached out to touch her cheek, which was slightly warm. She didn't even know what had just happened to herself. Was she bewitched? She was clearly aware of what Lu Changxing was doing. And yet she still stole a glance. If I could completely control and suppress this emotion, perhaps that would be the time when my state of mind reaches completion and I can see through illusions. As she practiced the supreme forgetful love technique, Xiao Xia's emotions gradually stabilized. But the thought of having to completely control these emotions made Xiao Xia sigh quietly. She looked up at the bright moon hanging in the night sky through her window. Somehow, the scene she had just witnessed appeared again before her eyes. It caused her freshly calmed heart to flutter slightly. Xiao Xia did not dispel the embarrassing image from her mind. Instead, she chose to confront it directly. And even tried to imagine herself in it. Because, for her, it was also a way to temper her state of mind. If she couldn't even control such emotions, how could she talk about transcending the emotional tribulation and seeing through illusions? It was unclear how much time had passed. Xiao Xia found she could now look at the scene without any perturbation. Face the image that challenged her Tao heart. By then daylight had come. Xiao Xia stood up, straightened her moon-white dress, and applied a cleansing technique to herself. She prepared to find Lu Changxing and have a frank discussion, to reveal the issues of the emotional tribulation, and explain last night's events. Lu Daoist. Xiao Xia went to the front courtyard and found Lu Changxing. Because of last night's events, the sight of Lu Changxing caused a faint ripple in her heart. However, after a whole night of tempering her state of mind, she didn't show any unusual signs. Xiao Daoist, let's have breakfast before setting off, Lu Changxing said casually. He didn't bring up last night's events. After all, it was somewhat awkward to discuss such matters. The best approach was to act as if nothing had happened. It's not about that. I have something to discuss with Lu Daoist, Xiao Xia said, shaking her head slightly and speaking earnestly. Seeing her serious expression, Lu Changxing knew she must have some important matter to discuss. Perhaps this was also why she came looking for him last night? Lu Changxing immediately escorted Xiao Xia to a secluded side hall. He inquired, "May I know what Xiao Daoist would like to discuss?" Lu Daoist must have noticed a clear change in me compared to 10 years ago, Xiao Xia said softly, looking at Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing nodded. He was unsure as to why Xiao Xia was suddenly broaching this subject. It's because of the cultivation technique I have been practicing, Xiao Xia continued. Having spent the last few days with Lu Changxing, experiencing life lessons and observing the lives of mortals, she had been observing him. Through her observation, Lu Changxing had passed her tests. That's why she thought of revealing the matters of the emotional tribulation. If she was to reveal the tribulation, she needed to explain the whole context. When Lu Changxing heard this, he thought to himself as expected. As he had suspected, Xiao Xia's changes were due to the practice of a particular cultivation technique. But he still didn't know why Xiao Xia was mentioning this to him. Not waiting for Lu Changxing to speak, Xiao Xia continued, "The cultivation technique in practicing is called the Supreme Forgetful Love Technique. To fully master this technique, one must experience the trials of the mortal world, understand grief and joy, separation and union, to comprehend the essence of supreme forgetfulness. My master crafted elixir medicines for me to skip this step and master the technique. But my state of mind still has flaws and I find it difficult to break through," Xiao Xia said slowly, maintaining an indifferent expression and a calm demeanor. Supreme Forgetful Love Technique? Lu Changxing nodded slightly. He knew that profound techniques like these have such requirements, therefore they are very difficult to practice. Like the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture he practiced, there were requirements for one's state of mind. However, he was an exception, having a shortcut to overlook this aspect. My state of mind is incomplete, and I gradually realized that I must overcome the emotional tribulation to break through the illusion and reach the fulfillment of my state of mind. My main purpose for descending the mountain is to undergo this emotional tribulation. And when I met Lu Daoist, I sensed an opportunity for a breakthrough from you. The emotional tribulation is likely related to Lu Daoist. That's why I asked Lu Daoist to accompany me on part of my journey. Xiao Xia spoke with a cool countenance and a tranquil tone. Emotional tribulation, Lu Changxing uttered, his heart suddenly enlightened upon hearing this. Before, he only knew that Xiao Xia was close to him and asked him to accompany her for a part of her journey because of the peach blossom goo. But as for the specifics, he had no idea. Now, hearing Xiao Xia's words, he suddenly understood. The so-called emotional tribulation must involve experiencing matters of affection. Xiao Xia left the mountain, intending to experience emotions to overcome her bottleneck. But just after meeting him, the peach blossom goo made these emotions fall upon him. Xiao Xia had also realized this, which is why she had been observing and sizing him up continuously at the Rui Tower. And she took the initiative to say that she was planning to travel without a particular destination in mind and asked him to accompany her. The goal was to try to overcome her emotional tribulation through him and thus make a breakthrough. Now that she was being upfront, she likely wanted him to do something. As a good friend, helping Xiao Daoist with her troubles is naturally my unquestionable duty. I'm not sure how Xiao Daoist intends to undergo this emotional tribulation, but if I can be of help, Lu would naturally help. Since the other party had put it that way, Lu Changxing felt it would not be good to refuse and thus spoke. As for this matter of emotional tribulation, I am not very clear about it myself. Originally, when I was beside Lu Daoist, my thoughts would become disordered, and my cultivation technique would operate automatically. Therefore, I would like to ask Lu Daoist to cooperate with me in an attempt, but last night, Xiao Xie, with a cold expression, seemed as ethereal as a fairy from the Moon Palace, her demeanor supremely pure and holy as she explained her situation. After all, when she decided to practice the supreme forgetful love technique, she possessed the resolve to ask about the way in the morning and be prepared to die in the evening, determination. Now that the way lay in front of her, she naturally wouldn't be coy like a young girl. After hearing Xiao Xie's words, Lu Changxing was momentarily stunned. Although he had thoughts about Xiao Xie, he had suppressed these ideas for the time being due to her status and identity. But what she was talking about now, this undergoing of emotional tribulation, was entirely a proactive offering. In such a situation, saying he would cooperate was possible, and maybe with some deeper persuasion he could even get Xiao Xie to have a child with him before she returned to Qingyun sect. But Lu Changxing did not harbor these thoughts. The identity of a nascent soul immortal disciple made him apprehensive. Regarding this matter of emotional tribulation, Lu also has some views, feeling that it may not necessarily require my involvement. Xiao Daoist can do this. Lu Changxing pondered for a moment before speaking tactfully. If it were anyone else offering such an opportunity, Lu someone would naturally not refuse. But Xiao Xie's status and identity were something he couldn't afford to provoke. Acting on it would not bring him much advantage, and it was likely to cause him endless embarrassment. Therefore, if she could resolve this emotional tribulation on her own, owing him a favor would be ideal. Is that really possible? Xiao Xie, after a moment of silence upon hearing Lu Changxing's words, asked. Evidently, her heart was not entirely calm either. After all, her supreme forgetful love technique would be effected in front of Lu Changxing. She couldn't achieve a state of absolute detachment. Xiao Daoist can give it a try. Lu Changxing handed her a soft cushioned meditation mat. Immediately, the plan for both to tour the marketplace was revised. Inside the room, Xiao Xie, with a cold countenance, sat cross-legged on a pink meditation mat. Suddenly her beautiful brows furrowed slightly. Then, on her cold and holy face, a hint of blush appeared, rendering her stunningly beautiful. The blush spread at a visible pace. It made her beautiful face flushed like the rosy clouds, her red lips slightly parted, and her breathing somewhat hurried. After a few breaths, the blush spread from her cheeks to her ears, making her delicate and lovely ears thoroughly red, and her snow-white graceful neck also gradually reddened. The perfect and delicate body inside the fairy's moon-white dress also started to tremble slightly. The embroidered shoes covering her round and petite jade feet trembled lightly, restless and uneasy. A moment later, a suppressed heavenly sound emanated from the fairy's throat, causing her to furrow her brows in pain, then look befuddled, her red lips parted as she collapsed to the ground. Huff. 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 Xiao Xie's bewitching eyes looked confusedly at the eaves, carefully observing the changes in her heart. In a daze, she realized the state of her heart at that moment, in that overwhelming dreamlike instance, was somewhat similar to last night when she witnessed the scene that impacted her Dao heart. To break through illusions, one must control these emotions. Xiao Xie murmured to herself. She could feel that this method indeed helped her, bringing a hint of ease to her heart. It felt as if much of the irritability and stray thoughts regarding her cultivation breakthrough had diminished. Even her realm seemed to have loosened a bit. But it's still not enough. Xiao Xie operated her supreme forgetful love technique, her eyes cold and calm as she murmured to herself. Propping up her body with her fair arms, she straightened her dress. Then Xiao Xie pushed open the room door and went out to find Lu Changxing. Chapter 282, Yun Wanshang, could something have happened to Shiyu? _1 Lu Changxing hadn't expected Xiao Xie to return to seek him out so soon. Looking at Xiao Xie in front of him, wearing a moon-white long dress with delicate features and an exceptionally ethereal and cool demeanor, Lu Changxing couldn't help feeling somewhat guilty. After all, looking back on it now, his idea seemed a bit off. Who would ask someone to cultivate like that? However, thinking about the unearthly beauty standing before him, as if she were a fairy from the Guanghan Moon Palace embarking on cultivation trials as he had suggested, a faint fire of irritation began to smolder in Lu Changsheng's dantian. Shao Daoist, is the method I proposed effective? Lu Changsheng gathered his mental spirit, calmed his restless mind and asked earnestly. Yes, Shao Xia replied softly. Her cold and succinct words were filled with temptation, stirring the imagination. If it's been of any help to you, that's good, Lu Changsheng exhaled lightly. Although he felt a little disappointed, he had at least managed to deal with the troublesome matter concerning Shao Xia. After all, if he were to actually intervene, the loss would outweigh the gain, and it would easily cause trouble. However, Shiyu can feel that this effect is not enough to break through the bottleneck, so I will still need Lu Daoist's help. Shao Xia's chest heaved slightly and she spoke with her lips barely parting. A ripple appeared in her cool and calm eyes. Clearly, her heart was not as tranquil as her outward appearance suggested. After all, the supreme forgetful love technique is not about being truly without emotion, but about being so immersed in the great Tao that one remains unaffected by emotions and desires. Furthermore, she had not yet cultivated to such a level. Upon hearing this, Lu Changsheng's mouth twitched. He had not expected Shao Xia to still require his assistance. This meant that what he had proposed had some effect, but it was not sufficient. He did not speak. It went without saying he could help, but the benefits did not balance out the costs. More loss than gain. Shao Xia noticed the hesitation in Lu Changsheng. Although inexperienced in worldly affairs, she wasn't entirely naive. She knew that her request made Lu Changsheng apprehensive, probably because he was worried that such a matter would bring him trouble. Lu Daoist, Shiyu knows this matter is making it difficult for you. If Lu Daoist is willing to help, Shiyu would be immensely grateful and ready to offer thanks. Or if Lu Daoist has any requirements, please feel free to make them. Also, Shiyu is willing to make a Dao heart vow that, regardless of the outcome of this emotional trial, success or failure, I will not involve or blame Lu Daoist. All consequences will be borne by Shiyu alone, so Lu Daoist can rest assured, Shao Xia said. Her eyes locked onto Lu Changsheng. A trace of heartfelt crimson flashed through her icy eyes but was quickly replaced by a look of determination. Now that the opportunity for her breakthrough was within reach, even her Moon Palace serene heart of the supreme forgetful love technique could hardly suppress this sense of urgency. Lu Changsheng, upon hearing these words, pursed his lips. He could tell that Shao Xia was sincere. And he was quite pleased with her proactive approach. A Dao heart vow might not be infallible, but for someone like Shao Xia who was single-minded in her cultivation, it was a reliably safe course of action. Since she had said so much, he felt he could agree to the arrangement. After all, he wasn't planning to make her bear children right now. Having made up his mind, Lu Changsheng said to Shao Xia, since Shao Daoist has put it that way, how can I refuse? There's no need for any lavish gifts, I only hope that in the future you can help me with one thing. I have yet to decide what it is, I will let you know once I have figured it out, Lu Changsheng stated. In his view, having helped Shao Xia with such an intimate act as surmounting an emotional trial, Shao Xia might as well be considered the mother of his future child. It was not convenient for him to take her home to be the mother now, but it would be no issue once he had the strength to do so. Considering Shao Xia's current cool demeanor, if she continued to progress in her cultivation, she might become an icy statue. So, it was necessary to plant a seed earlier on. After all, Lu Changsheng never forced anyone. Upon hearing this, Shao Xia's eyebrows knitted slightly. She would not have agreed to such a condition from anyone else, as it was akin to a sword hanging over one's head, making it difficult to cultivate in peace. But considering this was related to her great Tao opportunity and the cause and effect of her emotional trial, and given her interactions with Lu Changsheng over these days, she felt relatively confident about his character. Otherwise, she wouldn't have disclosed her emotional trial to him. She nodded and said, as long as it does not go against the Tao heart, she will do her best to fulfill it when the time comes. Shao Xia spoke and then solemnly raised her hand to take the vow. She vowed that she would not blame Lu Changsheng whether the emotional trial succeeded or failed, and that she alone would bear the consequences of any event. Bearing a few children shouldn't count as going against the Tao heart, right? Lu Changsheng thought to himself, watching Shao Xia make her vow. He nodded slightly and said to Shao Xia, how do you plan to start? At these words, Shao Xia blinked in surprise. She knew her emotional trial was related to the affections between men and women, her own desires, but how to begin or what to do next she found herself at a loss. After all, in this matter she was truly clueless. The next moment she saw Lu Changsheng's handsome face drawing closer. A warm, moist breath approached her lips and enveloped them. A blush like blooming snow lotuses crept onto Xiao Xie's face. Her heart pounded furiously, wanting to push Lu Changsheng away. But the surging shyness and desire within her, controlled by the supreme forgetful love technique, suppressed her instinctive reaction. Her eyelashes quivered as she hid her embarrassment, her face filled with bewilderment and helplessness, allowing him to take the lead. Chapter 283, Yun Wanshang, could something have happened to Shiyu? The fervent breath pried open her clenched teeth, intensifying her emotions to an overpowering degree, rendering her nearly incapable of self-control. No, this can't happen. Moments later, Xiao Xie felt the supreme forgetful love technique almost fail, and a languid moan escaped from her nostrils as she lightly struggled. Her stunningly beautiful face was flushed with a rosy hue, her delicate body going limp in waves. She seemed powerless to resist, almost collapsing in Lu Changsheng's arms. After a while, Lu Changsheng embraced Xiao Xie's tall and graceful figure, and in a gentle voice he said, "Daoist Xiao, is this the desired effect?" Xiao Xie's eyes were slightly downcast, her lips tenderly pink as she softly murmured an hum. The sunlight outside streamed through the lattice windows, sprinkling over the fairy's jade-like face. It bloomed on her beautiful cheeks like trees laden with snow and brought a hint of shallowness and enchantment to her holy and charming appearance. With the circulation of the supreme forgetful love technique, Xiao Xie gradually suppressed and extinguished the tide of carnal desire. Would Daoist Xiao like to continue? Lu Changsheng, holding her waist and smelling the fragrance from her hair, asked, looking at Xiao Xie in such a state. He found the fairy Shiyu's appearance quite amusing. Normally she seemed cold and aloof, like the nine heavens' bright moon high above, serene, sacred, indifferent and calm, provoking only distant admiration without daring any desecration. Yet with the slightest intimacy she would become like a little girl, her face flush with shyness, her body going weak. Once it stopped, she would slowly revert to the ethereal fairy demeanor. Wait just a moment. Xiao Xie, with eyes enchanting as the moon, allowed the man to wrap his arms around her waist and smell her dark silky hair as she whispered softly. She could feel that just being held like this, breathing in the masculine scent of Lu Changsheng, made her heart restless. Lu Changsheng, hearing this, remained silent. He simply held her, quietly embracing the tall, exquisite softness, relishing her beauty. After all, he was helping someone in her cultivation. They say that doctors possess compassion, and saving a life is more meritorious than building a seven-tiered pagoda. In Lu Changsheng's view, assisting someone in their cultivation was much the same. A man and a woman, like a pair of celestial beings, quietly embraced each other. It was unclear how much time passed. Xiao Xie's emotion stabilized. She had gradually become accustomed to Lu Changsheng's breath and embrace. Suddenly, the fairy pursed her lips and took the initiative to lift her cold jade-like face, the moon-white embroidered shoes elevating slightly. Their lips met, eyes closed gently. During this process, Xiao Xie's cheeks began to blush once again. It was her first kiss just now. And now it was her first time initiating a kiss. During this, she remained shy and passive, allowing the actions to happen to her without taking the lead. Desire surged wildly within her, making the supreme forgetful love technique circulate rapidly, her stunningly beautiful cheeks radiating with allure, a blush spreading from her face to her ears and neck. Moments later, the raised tips of her toes inside the moon-white embroidered shoes began to weaken along with her delicate body. And just then Xiao Xie, who was lost in the intoxication as if savoring fine wine, suddenly stiffened as if struck by lightning. With a soft yelp, her entire delicate body went limp, and she began to tremble. This caused the effect of the supreme forgetful love technique to directly fail. No, this mustn't happen. The beautiful face of the fairy flushed red as blood, experiencing an odd sensation on her chest, her legs going weak. She quickly gasped for breath and spoke out to stop Lu Changsheng's actions. Off, off, off. As their lips parted, Xiao Xie gasped for air, her breath as fragrant as orchids. She pursed the corners of her lips and, pretending to be composed, lifted her hand to wipe away the traces at the corner of her mouth and said, Lu Daoist, let's call it a day. She felt that things were moving too fast and she had to take time to properly digest it. But having said that, her body had yet to recover from its trembling, still leaning in Lu Changsheng's arms. All right, as Daoist Xiao wishes. Lu Changsheng looked at the radiant beauty in his arms, her lips lustrous and full, at the fairy who was struggling to maintain self-control, and a hint of amusement crossed his mind. He thought to himself that this fairy's combat strength was really too weak. If this were the case, her path to cultivation would indeed be very long. After a while, Xiao Xia's demeanor calmed down a bit. She gave Lu Changxing a salute and staggered away. Watching the hastily departing fairy, Lu Changxing chuckled softly, twirling his fingers and bringing them to his nose to sniff. He could still smell a fragrance like a blossoming garden of flowers. He couldn't help thinking, the fairy indeed carried her own weight, certainly not one to leave her children hungry in the future. Phew! Having just assisted the fairy in her cultivation, Lu Changxing felt that it had also affected him, his mind a bit disordered. He would need to find his wives and consorts to help with his own cultivation. After returning to her room, Xiao Xia had a maid fill a tub with water for her to bathe. She soaked alone in the bathtub scattered with flower petals. Is it worth it? During the recent cultivation session, which nearly nullified the supreme forgetful love technique, her state of mind seemed to revert to her once genuine and lively self, her heartstrings beginning to quiver. She questioned herself, whether it was worth it to do this for the sake of cultivation. A trace of confusion flashed in Xiao Xia's eyes. She recalled joining the Qingyun sect, her master Yun Wanshang imparting the supreme forgetful love technique to her, and her own resolute choice of the supreme forgetful love technique without any hesitation. She remembered the years of hard cultivation, the leaving of the mountain for experience, and clarifying Lu Changxing's emotional calamity with him. She was acutely aware that all this was her own choice, following her true nature. It's worth it, all of it. Xiao Xia's eyes were clear, the confusion, retreat, and regret in her heart clearing away. As the supreme forgetful love technique circulated, her beautiful eyes became as cold as the moon. She murmured to herself, I can certainly do it. Her cold and touching voice was very calm. Chapter 284, Yun Wanshang, could something have happened to Shiyu? But it revealed an unwavering determination. With the clarity of her Tao heart, she felt as if her realm had also loosened somewhat. In the following days, Lu Changxing and Xiao Xia did not venture out, but continued their cultivation practice within the residence. During these days, under the guidance of Lu Changxing, Xiao Xia's practice of the supreme forgetful love technique improved rapidly. She no longer closed her eyes and simply endured his verbal sparring, letting things happen, but would now slightly shyly collaborate a little. Although her proud chest still fluttered when caressed, it no longer caused the supreme forgetful love technique to lose its effect, and gradually she was able to control and restrain this surge of desire. Pitifully, this made things difficult for Lu Changxing. Initially, Lu Changxing thought he was merely helping a fairy with her practice, as if helping the future mother of his child. But once he truly assisted, this was not mere fairy cultivation, it was also a cultivation for himself. Thankfully he had his wives in the residence. Otherwise, who could withstand it? While Lu Changxing was practicing with the fairy at Qingyun sect, Kaiyun Peak, within a magnificent palace, Yun Wanshang was seated, engaged in alchemy. A green jade pill furnace, brimming with vitality and lush greenery, slowly rotated above her head. As a nascent soul immortal, she naturally knew some skills. In terms of alchemy, although not extremely profound, she was also a second-rank alchemist. Coalesce. As she formed hand seals, she sent a spiritual arc towards the pill furnace. Elixir medicines flew out one by one from the pill furnace, landing in her hands. Out of 10 elixir medicines, half were dull and scorched, clearly failures. What's wrong with me today? My mental spirit is somewhat restless during alchemy. Could it be that something has happened to Shiyu? Yun Wanshang frowned slightly as she looked at the elixir medicines in her hand. Her first thought was whether her disciple, Xiao Xia, had encountered trouble. But through the soul guide on Xiao Xia's body, she knew that Xiao Xia was not in mortal danger. Immediately, a jade token appeared in her hand. This was an information-transmitting jade token, divided into a pair of master and subordinate tokens. Although it could not convey specific information, during its creation, one could inscribe general information for simple communication. Yun Wanshang used the master and subordinate communication tokens to reach out to Xiao Xia, inquiring about her situation. Within the Lu family residence, in a room of a courtyard, the sound of Walla Walla could be heard. Xiao Xia sat in a bath bucket, her black hair lightly tied up. She scooped up the hot water tinged with flower petals with her delicate hands, gently rubbing away the non-existent saliva mark on her snowy skin. The clear serene beauty on her face was calm, but her eyes that were as bright as the full moon, trembled from time to time, clearly not as tranquil as she appeared. She had thought that after so many days of cultivation, her mental state would have greatly improved, allowing her to control these emotions. Yet, under Lu Changsheng's childlike behavior, her Tao heart was once again challenged. But inside she did not reject such behavior. Or rather, she did not reject such behavior from Lu Changsheng. She knew that Lu Changsheng was helping her with her cultivation. And the effects of such cultivation methods also made her even more certain that Lu Changsheng was indeed the opportunity and key to her breakthrough. At that moment, Xiao Xia's mental spirit stirred slightly, and with a beckoning gesture she pulled out a jade token from the nearby storage bag. Seeing the caring message from her master on the jade token warmed Xiao Xia's heart, and a touch of softness appeared in her eyes. She also knew that her master was worried about her discipleship and training outside the mountain, and immediately replied through the jade token, indicating she was well, and asked her master to be at ease, not to worry. Although she had things she wanted to say to her own master, the jade token could only convey simple messages. Meanwhile, in Azure Phoenix Immortal City, within a second-order cave mansion, Kaiyun True Immortal's disciple Xiao Xia is out on a solo training expedition. A young man around 27 or 28 years old, dressed in a crimson brocade robe, with a somewhat sinister and cunning face, looked at the message in his hand. Back then my cheap master went to ambush Yun Wanshang, only to never return. Now they send a message wanting me to go and ambush this disciple of Kaiyun True Immortal, hee. The corners of the young man's mouth curled up in a cold smirk. However, for the sake of this heavenly pure water, I might as well make a trip. After all, she's just a little chi refinement girl. Moreover, if this girl was taken as a disciple by Yun Wanshang, she must have an exceptional talent. Looking at the self-destructing jade slip in his hand, greed flickered in his eyes as he stepped out of the mansion. Within the Lu family residence. Zing zing zing. In a courtyard, Xiao Xia played the ancient zither in her white dress and skirt, her demeanor cool and ethereal. The sound of the zither was lingering and extremely beautiful. But to those proficient in rhythm, it was evident that the music was somewhat chaotic. Clearly the player's heart was not at peace. Sigh. Xiao Xia stopped playing the zither, sighing deeply. Her stunningly beautiful face momentarily lost in thought with a blush creeping up her cheeks. Just recalling the events of the previous day caused desire to surge uncontrollably within her, and the supreme forgetful love technique began to circulate rapidly. That day, during their cultivation, Lu Changxing had lifted and slid off her moon-white dress, and then feelings of shyness, shame, panic, confusion, and palpitations tormented her, a sensation like gnawing bones and scorching hearts, making her tremble and unable to compose herself even now. She felt as if she were ruined. It was nothing like when she did it herself in the past. As a result, she hadn't been able to calm her emotions entirely. And then yesterday. Xiao Xia looked toward her jade foot wrapped in plain white silk stockings inside her moon-white embroidered shoes. Her eyes, usually cool and indifferent like the bright moon, were now like a lake disturbed by falling drizzle, rippling slightly. Just as Xiao Xia's emotions were in turmoil and she was about to use the supreme forgetful love technique to calm herself, knock knock knock, a series of knocks sounded at the door. Xiao Xia knew it was Lu Changxing. This courtyard was only ever visited by Lu Changxing. Is it time to start cultivating today? Xiao Xia felt a tinge of restlessness in her heart, mixed with faint anticipation. Xiao Daoist. Lu Changxing looked toward Xiao Xia in front of the zither, who was clad in white, surpassing the snow, resembling the bright moon above or the Guanghan fairy, and called out with a smile. Lu Daoist, you've arrived? Xiao Xia's expression was cool, yet pleased as she looked toward the young man. She didn't know how Lu Changxing would cultivate with her today. Xiao Daoist, he'll be away for a while as there are matters to attend to at Qingzhou Mountain, so I need to make a trip back. Thus, for the upcoming period, it might be inconvenient to cultivate with you, Lu Changxing said up front to the fairy before him. His trip to Rui County City for the appointment had already been earlier than scheduled. As it had been 1 or 2 months since he'd been outside, he needed to return home briefly to inform his wives and concubines and to handle affairs at the spiritual talisman shop. Although the days spent cultivating with the fairy brought both pain and pleasure, he couldn't forget his home or neglect his duties. Moreover, the cultivation with the fairy couldn't be completed in a short time, and he couldn't stay with Xiao Xia here to cultivate at a leisurely pace. Going back. Xiao Xia nodded at his words. She was aware that Lu Changxing spent most of his time in the cultivation world, only occasionally visiting the secular realm. That he had stayed for so long in the secular world this time was because of her cultivation matters. "You've had a hard time these days, Lu Daoist," Xiao Xie said softly. "You're too courteous, Xiao Daoist. When I return, probably next month, I should be able to come over," Lu Changxing replied with a smile. Though it was painful and joyful, he had also tasted its sweetness, which he found quite acceptable in his view. "They'll go with Lu Daoist. I remember that Red Leaf Valley Market is near Qingzhou Mountain. That way it would be convenient for you to go back and forth, Lu Daoist, instead of the trouble of traveling to and fro. Besides, during this time I've had some insights and want to go see the cultivation world," Xiao Xie spoke out. She felt indebted for Lu Changxing's assistance. "All right, since that's the case, let's set off right now." Lu Changxing felt this would be better and much more convenient upon hearing her words. After all, the trip from Qingzhou Mountain to Red Leaf Valley was only half a day's journey. Spending days in the secular world was not only troublesome with the traveling back and forth but without the spirit vein, it also hindered and affected his cultivation. Xiao Xie, hearing Lu Changxing mention setting off right away to handle proper matters, felt an inexplicable hint of slight loss in her heart upon not hearing anything about cultivating together. However, she didn't show this emotion and immediately smoothed over and erased these feelings. She nodded lightly and said, "All right." Immediately, Lu Changxing informed his wives, concubines and children and then set off with Xiao Xie, riding flying mounts and leaving Rui County City for Red Leaf Valley Market. Chapter 285, Foundation Establishment Ambush, Treasure Bones Emerge. _1 The vast clear sky was a washed azure blue. A black iron feather eagle and a majestic immortal crane with pure white feathers were soaring swiftly through the air. On the backs of the iron feather eagle and the immortal crane, there stood a handsome young man with a stalwart figure, and a cold-faced, tall and graceful woman. It was Lu Changxing and Xiao Xie who had departed from Rui County City and were heading towards the Red Leaf Valley Market. Lu Changxing, utterly bored, watched Xiao Xie atop the crane, her tall and graceful figure draped in a moon-white dress, standing there like an ethereal fairy. Her cool and detached visage bore the pure aura of the bright moon in the sky, exuding an air of immortality. Beneath the caress of the wind, her long black hair and the hem of her dress fluttered, occasionally revealing a small section of her fair and round jade-like legs. This sight involuntarily caused Lu Changxing to think back to the moments of her cultivation over the past several days. Indeed, to hold an esteemed and inviolable fairy beneath oneself and indulge as one pleases is the deepest desire hidden in the heart of every man, Lu Changxing thought to himself, exhaling lightly to suppress the restlessness within his heart. For Xiao Xie these days were for cultivation. For him they were likewise a form of cultivation. "Fellow Taoist Xiao, in about 2 days we should reach the Red Leaf Valley Market." Seeing a landmark range of mountains and having a rough idea of their location, Lu Changxing sent a message to Xiao Xie. "Good," Xiao Xie replied. Whether she was in the state of cultivation or not, she was usually not very talkative, somewhat reticent. However, if a topic was brought up to her, Xiao Xie would always respond. Like during these days, Lu Changxing had asked Xiao Xie numerous questions. Even to some of the more personal questions she would answer. The iron feather eagle and the immortal crane continued to glide rapidly through the air. Just then, "Be careful," Xiao Xie suddenly exclaimed. She abruptly turned her gaze to the right where an ancient chain appeared in her hands. "Huh?" Alerted by her exclamation, Lu Changxing quickly turned and looked in the same direction. He immediately saw a stream of rainbow light slashing through the sky far away, speeding directly toward them. "The little girl is not simple indeed to have detected my presence. Truly worthy of being a disciple of Kaiyun true immortal." In the next moment, the rainbow light appeared mere zhangs away from the two. A man in his late 20s, with a sinister, effeminate face and dressed in a crimson brocade robe, materialized. Standing on a black cloud, he radiated a powerful aura of spirit pressure. It caused Lu Changxing's iron feather eagle below him to flap its wings frantically and shiver in fear. A Foundation Establishment cultivator. Lu Changxing's pupils shrank and his gaze narrowed slightly. From the man's speed and the spirit pressure he emitted, Lu Changxing immediately knew he was faced with a Foundation Establishment great cultivator. And from the look of it, this Foundation Establishment great cultivator bore no good intentions. "Senior recognizes my master, is there something you require?" Xiao Xie looked toward the young man and spoke. Her fair hand rested on the chain, poised and ready to strike, clearly perceiving the ill intentions of their adversary. I am here for you this time. As for the reason, you shall know in a moment. The man in the crimson robe spoke as he stood with his hands behind his back, his eyes revealing a glint of dark red light. As soon as he finished speaking, a mass of dark red murderous aura appeared beside him, transforming into the head of a ferocious python and roaring as it lunged toward Xiao Xia. Clang! Xiao Xia, prepared for such an event, plucked a string on the chain, and a resonant sound arose, followed by a gust of wind. It was clear to see ripples of sound waves emanating from Xiao Xia at the center, rolling out like a series of circular blades and crushing the murderous python with their force. But the next moment, the shattered murderous python, like mist, reassembled and continued its ferocious onslaught. Realizing the situation, Xiao Xia understood that this foundation-building great cultivator was an enemy, not a friend. Even with her exceptional talent, she stood no chance against a foundation establishment great cultivator. Especially since this great cultivator was evidently no ordinary one. Immediately, she took out a second-rank ice blue talisman from her storage bag and activated it swiftly. A terrible frost and cold wind arose as if intending to freeze the heavens and earth, aiming to encase the murderous python in ice and form a giant wall of ice. Go! Xiao Xia didn't linger, immediately shouting to Lu Changxing. Without hesitation, she retracted the immortal crane into her spiritual pet bag and conjured a cloud veil. Her graceful figure in white dress alighted on the cloud veil, reached out to Lu Changxing beside her, and brought him onto the cloud veil. Together they turned into a beam of escape light, attempting to flee. You think you can escape? The man in the crimson robe watched this unfold, his lips curling up in a slight smile, his voice filled with contempt and disdain. He, a foundation establishment great cultivator, set on interdicting a mere chi refinement miner, couldn't possibly let them get away. Even with the addition of Lu Changxing, it only meant another chi refinement cultivator, hardly worth his concern. Scowl. The man in the crimson robe formed hand seals and shouted coldly. Suddenly his life-bound spiritual artifact, the red phoenix pearl, flew out from his dantian and hovered above his head, radiating a red glow. A beam of light shot out, casting a red glow that caused the figure of Xiao Xia, maneuvering the cloud veil to escape, to stiffen abruptly. Immediately after, a chilling white flying sword appeared out of nowhere, its sword chi roiling and sharpness menacing, making a beeline for Xiao Xia. Not good. Realizing the imminent threat of the flying sword, Xiao Xia knew escape was likely impossible. Quickly, she slapped her storage bag and summoned a 5-colored tortoise shell. The tortoise shell shot into the air, unfolding a 5-colored radiance while exuding an aura of impregnable defense. Then a colorful sword bead appeared. The sword bead spun wildly, surrounded by terrifying sword light, seeming capable of slicing through everything. Go! Xiao Xia formed hand seals and shouted crisply, propelling the sword bead viciously towards the man in the crimson robe. Chapter 286, Foundation Establishment Ambush, Treasure Bones Emerge. Lu Changxing was slightly taken aback by Xiao Xia's decisive actions and strategies in combat. He hadn't expected Xiao Xia to be so resolute, possessing such fighting techniques. She didn't seem like someone who was experiencing her first time outside for training at all. He couldn't help thinking to himself that the disciples taught within the immortal sects were truly different. They didn't just know how to cultivate in terms of combat techniques, they were completely superior to many ordinary loose cultivators. Furthermore, looking at the cloud veil, tortoise shell, and sword bead, which were obviously of superior and top-grade magic artifacts, she seemed to be very wealthy. Despite his astonishment, Lu Changxing didn't just stand by and do nothing. He took out a stack of talismans, all of middle and superior grade, and threw out more than a dozen in one go. After all, as a talisman master, it was only natural for him to carry extra talismans for self-defense. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the talismans emitted a diffuse light, turning into streams of fire clouds, fire serpents, ice spikes, wind blades and lightning bursting forth wildly. Clang clang clang. The stark white flying sword struck against the 5-colored tortoise shell, the swords vibrating, and the tide-like sword chi roaring tumultuously, as if to shred to pieces anyone it touched, causing faint cracks to appear on the tortoise shell. As for the onslaught of the colorful sword beads and talismans, the young man in the red robe just let out a disdainful sneer. He lifted his right hand, crystal clear like jade and shimmering with a demonic luster, and directly grasped the sword bead. Crack, crack. The sharp sword beads made a teeth-grating crack sound against the crystal-like jade palm. A murderous python bursting with sinister chi leapt from his shoulder, directly neutralizing and shattering Lu Changsheng's talisman's offensive. This is definitely not an ordinary foundation-building great cultivator. Seeing this scene, Lu Changsheng's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't say much about his own stack of talisman attacks. It was quite normal for them to be neutralized, being merely middle and superior grade talismans. But Xiao Xia's tortoise shell and sword bead were clearly not simple. Yet, under the techniques of this young man in the red robe, the tortoise shell cracked, and the sword bead was even pinched in his hand. Although the young man's palm seemed to use some kind of spell, it still made him very alarmed. He knew that the strength of this young man in the red robe was not that of an ordinary foundation-building great cultivator. His power far exceeded the Lu family ancestor, Qin family ancestor, Bai family ancestor, and Meng Xiaochan that he had encountered before. Xiao Xia's countenance paled slightly as the two artifacts she summoned were broken, and she let out a muffled groan. She took out a silver talisman from her storage bag and handed it to Lu Changsheng. She quickly transmitted her voice, "Lu Daoist, this matter started because of me. He must be tracking me through some kind of technique. This is a second-rank escape talisman. He'll hold him off for a moment. You can use the talisman to escape from here," Xiao Xia said urgently. Practicing the supreme forgetful love technique helped her keep her mind calm even in the face of various crises. She knew that the young man in the red robe, a foundation-building great cultivator, was after her. This kind of encounter was certainly no coincidence. It was highly likely that the opponent possessed some secret technique that could find her. Thus, in this situation, it was extremely difficult for her to escape from the hands of a foundation-building great cultivator. She also didn't want to get Lu Changsheng involved at this time. Lu Changsheng did not take the talisman. He had such second-rank escape talismans himself. If he had wanted to escape, he could have used the talisman to do so during the first opportunity in the gap between their fights. But faced with this situation, leaving Xiao Xia behind and escaping alone was something he found rather difficult to do. Sigh, with this kind of nature, I'm really not suited for the cultivation world for these times, he thought to himself. However, after tasting both the sweet and the savory, and she being the future mother of my children, I can't just stand by and do nothing. Lu Changsheng sighed softly in his heart. He decided to fight back fiercely and see if he could save Xiao Xia. His boldness wasn't completely ungrounded. He had a certain confidence. He felt that if he truly gave it his all, he could take down a foundation-building enemy. Though this particular foundation builder was somewhat strong. Moreover, even if he was no match, he had the life-substituting talisman on him to cling to life. In the blink of an eye, with thoughts flashing through his mind, Lu Changsheng made a decision, his palms subtly retracting into his sleeves. One hand held a talisman, the other gripped a talisman treasure emitting golden light. "Hurry up," Xiao Xia pressed, looking at Lu Changsheng with some anxiety. She urged him to take the talisman and escape quickly. "Xiao Daoist, under these circumstances, how could I abandon you and leave?" Lu Changsheng responded with a light chuckle. "At a time like this, still indulging in romantic sentiment? But make no mistake, you two are doomed not to become lovebirds on the run." The young man in the red robe's eyes flashed fiercely as he abruptly exclaimed. In a pair of deep-set eyes, a crimson light glowed, striking fear into the heart. The next instant, Lu Changsheng's brow peach blossom goo roared furiously. It felt as if his brain had been hammered by something, his head dizzying, which made him let out a muffled groan. The pendant artifact he wore on his neck emitted a cool breeze at that moment. Pfft. Xiao Xia, on the other hand, turned deathly pale at the instant, and suddenly spurted a mouthful of fresh blood, clutching her white forehead. "You brat can actually withstand my divine sense attack?" The young man in the red robe was quite surprised seeing this scene. He never expected that under his divine consciousness secret technique, Lu Changsheng would remain unscathed, merely grunting. He knew that ordinary cultivators affected by his divine sense attack either fell immediately or ended up like Xiao Xia. Additionally, he could tell that Lu Changsheng was not a foundation establishment cultivator. He was likely just an energy refining cultivator. For a minor energy refiner to withstand his divine consciousness secret technique indicated the possession of some kind of protective treasure for the sea of consciousness. That made his eyes gleam with greed. Chapter 287, Foundation Establishment Ambush. Treasure bones emerge. After all, treasures that can protect the sea of consciousness are all highly cherished. No matter what treasure you have, it's all mine now. The red-robed youth laughed heartily, his palm closing as the red phoenix pearl hovering above his head radiated a dazzling light, shining towards Lu Changxing and Xiao Xia. The ghostly white little sword broke through the five-colored tortoise shell and, with a whoosh, charged towards Lu Changxing. The brilliance from the red phoenix pearl caused Lu Changxing's figure to suddenly stiffen, feeling as if his surroundings were sealed off and his spiritual power flowing sluggishly within him. He knew this was the gap between the realms of Qi refinement and foundation establishment. Not daring to hold back any longer, he slapped his storage bag. Suddenly, a 2-meter-tall metal puppet appeared in front of him, its body pitch black, wielding a knife in one hand, a shield in the other, and carrying 5 dark javelins on its back. It was the second-rank puppet he had forged, which had been lying dormant in his storage bag gathering dust. Clang! Facing the ghostly white flying sword, the metal puppet stepped forward, shield at the ready, creating a metallic clang and sparks flying in all directions. Immediately after, the black gold long knife in the puppet's hand fiercely swung out, mighty and unyielding, striking the ghostly white flying sword with another deafening clang. You also have a second-rank puppet? Seems like you're not as simple as you look, kid. The red-robed youth watched this scene, chuckled lightly, still appearing nonchalant and unconcerned. But the next moment, it's him? A talisman treasure. He saw that in Lu Changxing's hands an aura was spreading. A golden, rectangular object shot out, rapidly enlarging in the air, shining brightly, causing his expression to change subtly. Even as a foundation-building great cultivator facing a talisman treasure like this, he felt a bit troubled. It seems you really aren't simple, kid. Since that's the case, then go to your death. The red-robed youth, seeing that Lu Changxing had both a second-rank puppet and a talisman treasure, dropped the cat-and-mouse attitude. His hands formed a spiritual art, and one by one evil pythons appeared, their momentum fierce as they charged towards Lu Changxing, prepared for a quick battle. Xiao Xia, with a pale face and blood spilling from her mouth, was astonished by Lu Changxing's actions. Her beautiful face showed disbelief. Having been in close contact for so long, she naturally realized that Lu Changxing was not as simple as he appeared on the surface. He surely had hidden his abilities, his secrets. As for this, she did not question or care about it too much. After all, which cultivator does not have some fortune and secrets on them? But she never would have guessed that Lu Changxing had hidden his powers so deeply, producing a second-rank puppet and a talisman treasure unexpectedly. Especially when Lu Changxing activated the talisman treasure, with the aura of spiritual power surging around his body. It allowed her to approximately perceive that Lu Changxing's cultivation level and strength must be the same as hers, at Qi refinement perfection. However, seeing that Lu Changxing had such strength and measures to escape on his own, yet chose to fight by revealing himself in order to save her, it made her heart flutter, spawning an inexplicable emotion. But at this moment she did not pay attention to this feeling, taking out a golden talisman paper from her storage bag. Buzz buzz buzz. Xiao Xia stimulated the talisman paper with her spiritual power, causing a small golden sword to appear, emitting a terrifying might. This turned out to also be a talisman treasure. Huh? Another talisman treasure? The red-robed youth saw this, his eyes flickered and his expression darkened. Before he acted, he had guessed that these Qi refinement juniors would certainly have treasures to defend themselves. But he did not expect that there would be this additional complication. 2 Qi refinement juniors, each possessing a talisman treasure. But they are just 2 Qi refinement juniors. Even with talisman treasures, how can they unleash their full power? The red-robed youth scoffed, smacked his belt, and a set of black armor appeared, which he put on. After all, even though it was just talk, the unleashed power of 2 talisman treasures could potentially injure him if he was careless. Roar roar roar. Meanwhile, the 9 evil pythons had already furiously charged right in front of Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing was fully focused on activating the golden brick talisman treasure when he saw this sight, his fingers squeezing an activated supreme talisman, a thunder talisman. At this moment, as he activated the golden brick talisman treasure and controlled the second-rank puppet, he found it difficult to use another second-rank talisman. Under his puppet control technique, the second-rank puppet, which was clashing head-on with the ghostly white flying sword, suddenly had all 5 javelins on its back shoot up into the sky. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, like thunder and lightning they turned into 5 black bolts of lightning, and together they rushed toward the 9-headed evil python fiercely and powerfully. Boom boom boom. Every one of the 5 javelins, each as powerful as a strike from someone of the foundation establishment stage, collided with the 9-headed evil python, causing an explosive booming noise. But during this collision, Lu Changxing could distinctly feel that the middle-grade spirit stones within the puppet's core were being rapidly consumed, unable to keep up with the onslaught of the enemy's attacks. We must end this battle quickly. Lu Changxing also knew that in this situation, his side could not afford to drag the fight out. Every casual attack from his opponent forced him to use all his techniques. Looking up at the sky, where the golden brick now resembled a small mountain, Lu Changxing's mind shifted slightly. He poured his entire mental spirit and spiritual power into controlling the talisman treasure. Boom! The mountainous, radiant golden brick, with its heavy and pure aura, plummeted down towards the red-robed youth. Chi! Faced with the surging momentum of the falling golden brick, the youth dared not underestimate it and let out a low shout. The red phoenix pearl above his head spun rapidly, radiating intense red light, making the surroundings appear as if engulfed by a blazing cloud, rising to meet the golden brick bearing down like a formidable mountain. Rumble, rumble. The two treasures collided, their might surging, locking the golden and red light in a standoff midair. And at that moment Xiao Xia's talisman treasure, the golden little sword, also burst forth. This little golden sword, nearly pushed to its limit by Xiao Xia, displayed an incredible might and suddenly closed in on the red-robed youth. Chapter 288, Foundation Establishment Ambush Treasure Bones Emerge. For the youth was combating the golden talisman treasure brick when he saw the small sword coming to kill him. He slapped his hand, and a puppet in the form of a tiger appeared. Pfft. In just a moment the golden small sword pierced through the tiger puppet, shattering its core. But in that instant the youth wielded a pair of blood-colored scissors from his hand, which transformed into a blood-colored flood dragon, colliding with the golden small sword. Clang clang clang. The golden small sword and the blood-colored flood dragon continuously clashed. At this moment the youth in the red robe was somewhat strained facing the second-rank puppet and two talisman treasures. He saw that Xiao Xia was already at the end of her tether. Under the initial offensive and divine sense attack, her mental spirit had already been damaged. Now, as she desperately stimulated the talisman treasures, both her mental spirit and mana were barely holding on. He prepared to deal with Xiao Xia first, then handle Lu Changxing. With a flicker of his mental spirit, the sun-white flying sword entangled with the second-rank puppet suddenly turned and charged towards Xiao Xia. Daoist Xiao, be careful. Lu Changxing, upon seeing this, immediately shouted. He took control of the second-rank puppet to intercept the flying sword. However, after the nine-headed evil python was shattered, it regrouped, indomitable, forcing the puppet to block its way. Pfft. Xiao Xia's complexion turned pale as she saw the small sword coming to kill her. She bit her silver teeth, spitting fresh blood onto her ancient zither. Twang! Immediately the ancient zither soared into the sky, its blood-stained strings plucked autonomously, emitting a sound like that of warhorses and ironclad soldiers, as wave after wave of sound wave blades were unleashed. Clang clang clang. The sun-white flying sword collided with the ancient zither, making Xiao Xia's face even paler. Daoist Lu, you must go quickly, Xiao Xia said aloud. She could see that even if Lu Changxing was hiding his strength, possessing a second-rank puppet and talisman treasures, this Foundation Establishment great cultivator was not an ordinary one. They were no match for him. If they persisted, both of them would die here. After speaking, she fully stimulated her mental spirit and spiritual power, propelling the golden small sword to create an opportunity for Lu Changxing. The sword emitted bursts of golden light around itself, and with a fierce slash, it cut a deep gash in the body of the blood-colored flood dragon, causing the spiritual artifact to revert to a blood-colored pair of scissors and fall from the sky. At that moment, the golden small sword also dimmed considerably but still charged towards the youth in the red robe. Umph! The youth in the red robe, seeing his spiritual artifact damaged, let out a cold snort and formed a hand seal. Black armor around him surged with a ghostly light, and at the same time the blood-colored scissors flew up again, transforming into a blood-colored flood dragon, colliding with the golden small sword. But at this moment the blood-colored flood dragon was clearly much dimmer than before. Lu Changxing, watching this scene, also had an estimate of the youth in the red robe's strength. He knew the latter was also running low on strength. He propelled the talisman treasure golden brick with all his might while controlling the second-rank puppet to attack the youth in the red robe. The treasure bones in his chest were poised and ready. This was his last trump card. Damn it! The youth in the red robe, seeing the puppet coming to kill, also looked somewhat sullen and ugly. Lu Changxing and Xiao Xie, although both were in the stage of qi refinement, summoned talisman treasures with incredibly astonishing power. Especially the golden light brick, which completely entangled his life-bound spiritual artifact, crazily draining the mana within his body. He gritted his teeth, formed a hand seal with both hands, and slapped his chest to use a secret technique. It allowed him, under such circumstances, to split a part of his mental spirit and mana to control his magic artifact. Clang clang clang. Immediately, a purple bell magic artifact appeared, gently swaying in the void and emitting a series of soul-stirring sounds. This sound made both Lu Changxing and Xiao Xie unable to help but feel dazed, somewhat dizzy and swollen-headed. The young man clearly saw that both were fully controlling the talisman treasure, thus expending a great deal of their mental spirit. A disturbance would inevitably lead to an opening. Pfft. The second-rank puppet reached the young man in the red robe, and the black gold long knife in its hand slashed out explosively. The young man wasn't a body cultivator, so naturally he wouldn't forcibly resist such a close-range attack. An armor surrounded by dim light materialized a ghostly shield in front of him, blocking the strike. The purple bell continued to ding, unsettling the mind, causing Xiao Xie, who was barely holding on, to completely faint. Now's the moment. Lu Changxing's eyes flashed fiercely, knowing that the young man in the red robe had also reached his limit. Now, without Xiao Xie's help, he couldn't delay any longer. If the opponent had the chance to recover, there would be no opportunity. He immediately patted the spiritual pet bag and summoned the six-winged golden silkworm. This six-winged golden silkworm had been raised for almost 2 years now. But regardless of its size or appearance, there was no difference from when he first obtained it. It was still in the larval stage. However, at this moment, as long as it could be of use, that was enough. Lu Changxing had the six-winged golden silkworm prepare in secret. Then, while putting all his strength into stimulating the golden light brick, he unleashed the treasure bones that he had nourished for many years with the black dragon magical bead. Roar, roar, roar. In an instant, dragon roars resonated through the void. Straight from Lu Changxing's chest, a tide of dark light spread unceasingly, like a rolling river with surging waves, emitting a terrifyingly powerful aura. What kind of technique is this, and how does it have the aura of core formation? And how can this youngster, with only qi refinement strength, having already stimulated one talisman treasure, still unleash such a powerful technique? The young man in the red robe screamed, somewhat panicked. Boom. The next moment, from Lu Changxing's chest emerged a flood dragon enveloped in glistening black light and shrouded in black mist, giving off a bizarre and evil roar as it emerged. What on earth is this technique? This youngster is clearly just a minor qi refinement cultivator. The young man in the red robe stared at the menacing roaring flood dragon, his expression also becoming somewhat vacant. Not understanding what was happening before his eyes. Why, while fully controlling a talisman treasure, could he still unleash a technique with a forceful presence not weaker than that of a foundation establishment aura? Roar, roar, roar. Before he could think further, the rolling black mist and the roaring evil spirit of the flood dragon made the young man in the red robe feel his body sluggish and the spiritual light in his mental spirit dim. The black dragon magical bead, upon initial activation, burst forth with black light capable of suppressing the flesh and corrupting the soul. This spirit of the evil flood dragon naturally possessed such an effect. The young man, already in a state of deadlock, couldn't withstand the soul of the evil flood dragon at all and was directly engulfed and devoured by the approaching black mist. Chapter 289. 100,000 Spirit Stones. The Change in Xiao Xie. _1. Rumble. The evil Jiao's soul engulfed and drowned the young man in the red robe. A terrifying radiance filled the void, causing the entire space to boom and explode. Ah! A shrill scream sounded amidst the waves. Huff. This strike, lit by the explosive energy of the treasure bones, also made Lu Changxing's face somewhat pale, with a faint pain in his chest. Through the red bead that had clashed hard against the golden light brick, he knew that the young man in red was not yet completely dead. Go! Lu Changxing issued an order to the six-winged golden silkworm, lest the opponent still had some strength left. At the same time, he continued to control the golden light brick with his mental spirit. At this moment, he could clearly feel the might of the red bead resisting the golden light brick had greatly diminished, falling steadily. This indicated the dire situation of the young man in red, who was unable to resist. Boom, boom, boom. As the golden light brick continued suppressing the red phoenix pearl, a blood-red light burst out from the soul of the evil Jiao. It was indeed the young man in red. By now his black armor was ragged, his hair disheveled, his appearance was utterly wretched. "Ah, you wait for me this grudge?" the young man in red ranted bitterly, attempting to escape using a secret technique. But before he could finish speaking, the hovering golden light brick came crashing down like a mountain. Puff! Simultaneously, a golden line shot out like an arrow, piercing his forehead, leaving a bloody hole. It was the six-winged golden silkworm. The next moment, the golden light brick also thundered down, pressing both the red phoenix pearl and the young man in red toward the ground below. Upon seeing this, Lu Changxing embraced Xiao Xiye's delicate body and, piloting the flying artifact, descended swiftly. Rumble! With a thunderous roar, the golden light brick pinned the young man directly onto the mountainous terrain, causing the ground to shake. Few truly fitting for a Foundation establishment great cultivator, so hard to kill. The treasure bones I've nurtured for years are not the least bit weaker than a full-force strike from a talisman treasure, yet he almost got away. Lu Changxing could sense that the opponent's vitality had nearly extinguished with the six-winged golden silkworm strike. But just to be safe, he had followed up with a blow from the golden light brick. Through the golden light brick, he could detect that the young man in red pinned underneath was thoroughly devoid of life. However, to be on the safe side, Lu Changxing still took out 3 superior-grade talismans and 1 supreme talisman, setting them up around the golden light brick. After he finished, Lu Changxing slightly stirred his mental spirit, allowing the golden light brick to rise slowly. Upon seeing the mangled corpse within the large pit, Lu Changxing finally felt at ease. He retracted the golden light that had engulfed the brick, which had become as large as a small hill, and watched it shrink, reverting to the form of a talisman and flying back into his hand. But now this talisman treasure was quite dim, its paper even appearing somewhat damaged. This talisman treasure is probably going to be completely scrapped after one more use. Lu Changxing looked at the dim golden light brick talisman treasure in his hand and mused inwardly. This talisman treasure had been used by him multiple times, already depleting much of its power. The recent battle, though brief, had been greatly taxing due to his full-powered activation. If this Foundation establishment great cultivator was a pauper, then this would be quite the loss for me. Lu Changxing gazed into the large crater made by the golden light brick, at the torn body within it, and exhaled lightly. However, the likelihood of this was slim. The red bead, the pale white sword, and the blood-colored scissors alone were of considerable value. Lu Changxing did not ponder long to avoid drawing others to the site of the recent battle. He embraced Xiao Xiye's tender body, collected the young man in red's mangled corpse, and quickly gathered the scattered treasures around before swiftly departing. After an hour, Lu Changxing found a cave in the mountain range. He gently placed Xiao Xiye down inside. From his storage bag he took out the heavenly canopy 5 elements formation and set it up. This formation had the effects of trapping enemies and isolating aura, very practical, and was always on Lu Changxing's person. After setting up the formation, Lu Changxing took a recovery elixir medicine from the storage bag and used a healing talisman on him, which made him feel much better. He then checked Xiao Xiye's condition. She seemed to have just suffered damage to her mental spirit and had overconsumed her spiritual power, nothing too serious. After making a preliminary assessment, Lu Changxing passed a healing pill into her lips. He then applied another healing talisman to her. He immediately saw her pale complexion improve considerably. The biggest difference between the Qi refinement realm and the Foundation establishment stage, aside from the qualitative change in spiritual power and mana, is divine sense. Foundation establishment cultivators give birth to divine sense, which affords great convenience in both combat and cultivation. If it weren't for the peach blossom goo shielding me from divine sense attacks, I fear I would have suffered damage to my mental spirit just like Xiao Xiye. Lu Changxing looked at Xiao Xiye's form and realized the most undefendable aspect of encountering Foundation establishment while being in the Qi refinement stage. Even if you have a magic artifact, defending against divine sense attacks is almost impossible. If he didn't possess the peach blossom goo, he might have been affected as well. Nevertheless, it was only now that Lu Changxing discovered the peach blossom goo had this effect. Immediately, he closed his eyes to introspect, inspecting the condition of the peach blossom goo between his eyebrows. Though it seemed somewhat listless, it wasn't of much concern. This was normal. After all, it was a divine spirit goo. And the growth of the peach blossom goo was remarkably fast. Under his flourishing peach blossom luck, it had grown to the extreme limit of the first transformation. If his cultivation level did not restrict it, it could have advanced to the second transformation. Seeing that Xiao Xia wouldn't awaken anytime soon, Lu Changxing stripped the storage bag and storage belt from the young man in red. He began sorting through the spoils of the battle. I hope they yield a substantial return. Lu Changxing looked at the storage belt and storage bag with a hint of anticipation. Chapter 290, 100,000 Spirit Stones. The change in Xiao Xia. After all, the young man in the red robe didn't seem like an ordinary Foundation establishment cultivator. One would think he couldn't be too poor. Buzz, buzz, buzz. At this moment the six-winged golden silkworm was flying around Lu Changxing. Its wings, thin as cicadas, fluttered, emitting a bloodthirsty aura. Go ahead. Lu Changxing naturally understood what the six-winged golden silkworm meant and chuckled lightly. He hadn't burned the young man in the red robe to ashes, precisely to leave the body for the six-winged golden silkworm. After all, this six-winged golden silkworm fed on blood. To it, the blood essence of a Foundation establishment great cultivator like the young man in the red robe was naturally a great tonic. Having received Lu Changxing's permission, the six-winged golden silkworm immediately burrowed into the young man's body and began to feast greedily. Isn't this a bit too much like the practices of the demonic path? Lu Changxing watched the actions of the six-winged golden silkworm and smacked his lips. Very soon he shook his head and said, but it's just resource utilization after all. If I didn't feed it to the six-winged golden silkworm, I'd have to burn it to ashes. Besides, this is far from what the demon path cultivators do. I read in a book before that some demonic path cultivators use any resource they can for cultivation, be it humans, demon beasts, or the souls of all living beings. Things like human skin books, white bone arrows, pools of blood and flesh, myriad soul banners, and even human emotions like joy, anger, and hatred can be used for cultivation. Lu Changxing clicked his tongue in amazement. He had roughly read about the differences between the righteous path and the demonic path in books before. Although the descriptions weren't very detailed, he had a general idea. Demonic path cultivators are more extreme in their cultivation techniques and behaviors, showing less humanity for the sake of advancement. This consequently leads to some differences in the speed of cultivation and breaking through realms. But on the whole, there isn't much difference between cultivators of the righteous path and those of the demonic path. My cheap brother-in-law seems to have followed the demonic path, and I have no idea about his current situation or if he's still alive. Lu Changxing suddenly remembered Chu Zhenshin's brother, Chu Chang'e. After all these years, he wondered how his cheap brother-in-law, who had entered the demonic path, was faring. After all, life wasn't easy for demonic path cultivators in Jiang country. Without further musing, Lu Changxing began to check the storage bag. So many spirit stones, materials? Lu Changxing immediately saw a pile of spirit stones and materials inside, and his face lit up with surprise. Even without counting in detail, he could tell at a glance that this was no small number of spirit stones. Among them were many lustrous middle-grade spirit stones. What's this? Lu Changxing then looked at a crystal porcelain bottle. Inside was half a bottle of red crystal granules, resplendent like glazed glass. Just by the quality of the exquisite spirit bottle and the appearance of the crystals, Lu Changxing could tell they were no mundane objects. Opening the porcelain bottle, he immediately felt an intense, scorching energy. Each grain of crystal shone with a precious light. Could this be something like the core formation spiritual object, heavenly fire glaze, as recorded in the books? If this thing really is the core formation spiritual object, heavenly fire glaze, then its value is at least 50 to 60,000 spirit stones. Lu Changxing looked at the crystal porcelain bottle, his face filled with a smile, and he put it into his storage bag. A regular Foundation establishment spiritual object might cost 2 to 3,000 spirit stones. But for a core formation spiritual object, the price increases 20-fold. And they are priceless on the market. Lu Changxing continued his inventory. Seeing ordinary materials and magic artifacts didn't stir much emotion in him. Red Phoenix True Scripture, a peripheral sect level cultivation technique. Seems like there's something worthwhile after all, to possess a peripheral sect level cultivation technique. However, the technique is incomplete, only cultivable to the core formation stage, but I can study the 2 secret techniques recorded inside later. Lu Changxing found several technique jade slips in the storage bag. After a brief glance, there were several high-grade cultivation techniques and the inheritance of 100 arts of cultivation. Only the Red Phoenix True Scripture notably piqued Lu Changsheng's interest. Is this a magic treasure embryo? Lu Changsheng saw a small black-red cauldron among the items, examining it in his hand. This small cauldron had only a rough outline of a cauldron shape. Neither the design nor the patterns were sculpted yet, resembling an unrefined embryo. But from inspecting the material of the small cauldron and the aura it emitted, even the worldly Lu Changsheng faintly sensed that this was a magic treasure. This kind of appearance made Lu Changsheng guess it was a magical treasure embryo. As far as Lu Changsheng knew, most cultivators' life-bound magic treasures are made from some rare and precious materials, which they refine themselves. They then shape it into an embryo and gradually nurture and imbue it into a fledgling form, eventually turning it into a magic treasure. This has an advantage as one could control the fledgling form of the magic treasure in the late stage of foundation establishment. And by nurturing the magic treasure embryo well in advance, one could let the magic treasure take shape immediately upon reaching core formation, significantly increasing its power. Could it be that this young man in the red robe is a cultivator in the late stage of foundation establishment? Otherwise, why would he have core formation spiritual objects and a magical treasure embryo? Lu Changsheng glanced at the corpse that was being drained of blood by the six-winged golden silkworm and speculated. After all, how could an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator have such rare items? However, sifting through the spoils made Lu Changsheng somewhat relieved. For he had also found in the red-robed young man's storage bag 6 pieces of supreme talismans of the second rank, as well as heavenly thunder pearls, white bone arrows and other treasures. It became clear that the latter actually had quite a few trump cards. If he had made a determined attempt to take their lives from the beginning of their encounter with him and Xiao Xie, neither she nor Lu Changsheng would have had the chance to retaliate. There wouldn't have been any time to employ talisman treasures to suppress him. The same principle applies, even when a lion hunts a rabbit, it uses all its strength, Lu Changsheng thought to himself. Otherwise, one might capsize in the gutter unexpectedly. Chapter 291, 100,000 Spirit Stones. The change in Xiao Xie. Lu Changsheng shook his head slightly, feeling a sigh. He stored the small cauldron away and continued the cleanup. Even if the cauldron was a magical treasure embryo, it wasn't of much use to him. It was merely a piece of valuable material. Besides possibly selling it in the future, it could also be used to cultivate the 100 Refinements treasure body art. After all, a magical treasure embryo still counted as a magical treasure. It could be refined into his body. The cleaning process that followed didn't reveal any high-value items to surprise Lu Changsheng. 128 middle-grade spirit stones. 3,894 lower-grade spirit stones. 1 suspected core formation spiritual object. 1 foundation establishment spiritual object. 1 magical treasure embryo for spiritual artifacts, but one of them is worn, 1 is severely damaged, essentially scrapped, only suitable as waste material for the cultivation of the 100 Refinements treasure body art. 2 superior magic artifacts, 3 ultimate magic artifacts, 1 flying boat, 1 heavenly thunder pearl, 1 first-grade lifespan extension pill, plus this pile of elixir medicines, talismans and materials. The total value is over 100,000 spirit stones, right? After clearing everything up, Lu Changsheng took a deep breath while looking at this batch of spoils, and after roughly calculating their value, he exhaled long and deep. This batch of spoils was indeed the greatest haul he had ever had. The biggest gain he achieved previously was the Ko family's 5 vicious beasts, and that was just over 10,000 spirit stones when added to Meng Xiaoquan's 2 foundation establishment spiritual objects. But now, the lone red-robed youth's spoils directly approached an enormous sum of 100,000. This wealth made Lu Changsheng even more aware that this person was far from ordinary. From the earlier situation, he must have been targeting Xiao Xie, seeking to capture her alive. Lu Changsheng looked at the still unconscious Xiao Xie, smacking his lips. He felt the matter was far from simple. Keep in mind, Xiao Xie is a disciple of a nascent soul immortal from Qingyun sect. Now a foundation establishment great cultivator, knowing Xiao Xie's identity, still came to seize her, which made him feel the situation was complicated. Alas, the more entanglements there are, the greater the cause and effect. Lu Changsheng shook his head, packed away the items, and took out 7 middle-grade spirit stones to recharge his puppet. In the recent battle, this second-rank puppet hadn't suffered any damage. But the consumption of spirit stones was vast. Nearly 7 out of the 10 stones had been used up. After returning this time, if I have the time, I could also create a few more puppets, Lu Changxing thought to himself. Even the materials he had obtained were almost enough to create another second-rank puppet. But the next moment Lu Changxing shook his head. The urgent matter at hand is cultivation, otherwise with my current mental spirit, even if I had several puppets, I wouldn't be able to control them simultaneously. During the recent battle, Lu Changxing had also realized his shortcomings in this area. Operating a single puppet had already reached a limit during combat. If he were to control multiple puppets at the same time, it would be difficult to concentrate on other tasks. Most cultivation techniques for mental spirit require the emergence of divine sense first. It's not something that can be rushed, unless the system can draw a relevant cultivation technique for this aspect. Lu Changxing let out a sigh, grabbing 2 lower-grade spirit stones and began to sit in meditation for healing and recovery. The next day Lu Changxing glanced at the still unconscious Xiao Xia. Seeing the effects of the healing talisman on her nearly dissipated, he took out another and used it. As the talisman flowed through Xiao Xia's body like dew from a lotus, she let out a soft moan and woke up. "Xiao Daoist, have you awoken?" Upon seeing Xiao Xia waking up, Lu Changxing immediately inquired with concern. "Lu Daoist? Where are we and where's the robber cultivator?" Xiao Xia sat up, looked around the crude cave and asked. She didn't know if they had escaped or if she had been imprisoned by the red-robed youth. Under the power of our 2 talisman treasures, that robber cultivator was also at his limit. Lu had no choice but to play my last card and barely managed to slay him. Lu Changxing sighed, his words tinged with a mix of distress and relief. As he spoke, he returned Xiao Xia's tortoise shell, sword bead, cloud veil and talisman treasures. He might be avaricious, but not to the extent of coveting these few things from the mother of his child. "You actually slew him?" Xiao Xia was somewhat incredulous. From their brief encounter before, she understood that the red-robed youth was not an ordinary foundation establishment cultivator. He was at least at the middle stage of foundation establishment. She and Lu Changxing might have suppressed him with the help of the talisman treasure. But suppression and slaying were entirely different concepts. She was stunned for a moment. Then, her somewhat pale face broke into a smile that was unlike her usual cold demeanor, blooming like a snow lotus. "I didn't expect Lu Daoist to have hidden so deeply." She knew Lu Changxing had secrets. But upon seeing the second-rank puppet, talisman treasure and Lu Changxing's cultivation level, she had already been amazed. Now, hearing that Lu Changxing had slain the red-robed youth, her view of him was completely altered. Seeing Lu Changxing slightly frown, Xiao Xia seemed to realize something, her lips lightly pursed as she said, "Don't worry Lu Daoist, every cultivator has their secrets. In Rui County City, you already perceived that you were different from ordinary cultivators, certainly possessing fortunate secrets. So rest assured, you can swear on my Dao heart that I will absolutely not divulge anything about Lu Daoist to anyone." Xiao Xia, being a smart person and cultivating the supreme forgetful love technique, was enlightened in her Dao heart. Having said that, she promptly swore an oath, indicating she wouldn't mention this matter to a third party. "Xiao Daoist, there's no need for such formality, the situation isn't that serious." Lu Changxing smiled, very satisfied with Xiao Xia's consideration. After all, revealing talisman treasures and cultivation levels like this was still somewhat risky. Chapter 292, 100,000 Spirit Stones, The Change in Xiao Xia. Under 4, reading Omicron in Novel Cool. Omicron, Lisi had been considering how to hint to Xiao Xia, but to his surprise, she brought it up herself. If it hadn't been for Lu Daoist, Shiyu would have been in danger this time. Previously, Lu Daoist helped Shiyu with her cultivation, and now he has risked his life to save her. Although he used his trump card to slay the robber cultivator, he must have suffered great losses himself, leaving Shiyu at a loss for how to repay him. Xiao Xia's gaze fell slightly as she spoke softly. During the battle with the robber cultivator, an inexplicable emotion had emerged in her heart. At this moment, these feelings were rapidly taking root in her heart. She did not use the supreme forgetful love technique to suppress these emotions, letting them fill her heart instead. "Haha Xiao Daoist, you are being too formal." Given the situation at the time, it would have been difficult for Lu to abandon Xiao Daoist and leave. Lu Changxing's eyebrows raised slightly as he noticed the change in Xiao Xia's expression. Having interacted with her for such a long time, he knew that Xiao Xia's cool and ethereal demeanor would only disappear when she was cultivating. Once she stopped cultivating, she would quickly return to her usual cold and aloof appearance. But at this moment, Xiao Xia looked completely different from usual. It reminded Lu Changxing of the lively and genuine, bright and charming Xiao Xia from 10 years ago. Furthermore, he keenly sensed that Xiao Xia was now referring to herself as Shiyu. Obviously, she felt much closer to him. He knew that experiencing life and death together, and a hero saving a beauty were things that greatly increased affections. As the words fell, Xiao Xia's delicate and incomparably beautiful face, slightly pale, took the initiative to move closer. Lu Changxing immediately felt a warm, fragrant sweetness pass between their lips. He could smell an indescribably fresh and fragrant body scent in his nostrils. Suddenly the two were kissing each other. This time the fairy was very proactive. It gave Lu Changxing a taste of something different. A moment later, Lu Changxing let go of the warm and fragrant soft jade in his arms. After all, it wasn't good to get worked up in the wilderness. And there was still one matter to take care of. That was, the red-robed youth was clearly targeting Xiao Xia, and it remained to be seen whether they had other tricks up their sleeve to cause trouble. Xiao Daoist, that robber cultivator clearly came after you under such circumstances. Lu Changxing shared his thoughts. They must be targeting me, intending to use me against my master. Xiao Xia nodded her head with a deep look in her eyes, aware of this issue as well. There's no time to delay, Shiyu will go back and report this matter to the master. The matter of cultivation can only be set aside for now. I will return to Qingzhou Mountain to find Lu Daoist after I've dealt with this. Xiao Xia pursed her lips and spoke softly. She also knew that she was in a dangerous situation at the moment. Moreover, being with Lu Changxing not only put herself in danger but could also involve him. The next time they encountered such an incident they might not be so lucky. All right, do you need me to send you? Lu Changxing nodded. He felt that with the support of a backer, one should naturally turn to that support in such situations. Shiyu can go back by herself. Lu Daoist, you must be preparing for foundation establishment, right? Xiao Xia asked. I still need to polish my skills for several more years before preparing for the foundation establishment. At this time Lu Changxing did not conceal too much. It had been less than a year since his breakthrough to the 9th level of energy refinement, and he needed several more years of cultivating his spiritual power before he could prepare for foundation establishment. All right, once Shiyu has dealt with the matter, I will return to assist Lu Lang with his foundation establishment. Xiao Xia smiled sweetly, her enchanting voice containing a hint of sweetness. After finishing her words, she kissed Lu Changxing again. Chapter 293. The Master and Apprentice Arrive Together. Underscore 1, suddenly so proactive. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron. Lise watching Xiao Xia riding away on the immortal crane, with her clothes fluttering and full of immortal aura, Lu Changxing touched his nose. He could still faintly smell the rich fragrance at his fingertips. He could clearly feel the change in Xiao Xia after she woke up from her fainting spell. Not only was her tone and demeanor no longer cold, but she also became much more proactive. This feeling was quite pleasant. Phew, I should head back too. This trip has also shown me the gap between Qi refinement and foundation establishment. I need to reach foundation establishment as soon as possible. Otherwise, without a talisman treasure or treasure bones, if I encounter another foundation building great cultivator, it would be troublesome. Lu Changxing exhaled a long breath and rubbed his still faintly aching sternum. That strike from the treasure bones meant he would need to recuperate for a while before he could fully recover. But what exactly did Xiao Xia mean when she said she would help me with foundation establishment? Lu Changxing thought back to Xiao Xia offering to help him with his foundation establishment. But when he asked about it, Xiao Xia remained silent and mysteriously indicated it would be a surprise for him. Lu Changxing speculated in his heart, could it be a foundation establishment elixir or perhaps some kind of secret technique that assists with foundation establishment? But I already have a foundation establishment elixir, and with my current situation, as long as I reach Qi refinement perfection, I have about a 90% chance of achieving foundation establishment. How else could she help? 99%? Lu Changxing smacked his lips and didn't think further. After causing the cave to collapse and dealing with the scene, he rode the Iron Feather Eagle and left. 2 days later, Lu Changxing safely returned to Qingzhou Mountain. His wife Lu Miaoyun, Lu Miaohuan, and several other women asked him why he had stayed in the secular world for so long. Especially Lu Miaohuan, who was now about to give birth. Seeing that Lu Changxing had not yet returned, she was so distressed that she needed a lot of comforting from him. He also explained why his trip took so long. After the gathering, a good friend was leaving the mountain to gain experience, but had nowhere to go, so he accompanied him for a while. Of course, he did not go into detail about how he provided the accompaniment. After all, discussing such matters of helping others in their cultivation with his wife felt a bit strange to Lu Changxing, especially since the second young mistress was about to give birth. Hearing this, Lu Miaohuan and Chu Jinjin didn't think much of it. But Lu Miaoyun felt a strange sense of oddness when she heard that the Qingyun sect disciple who accompanied her husband was a woman. She always felt that her husband's popularity with women was a bit too good. Now, whenever she saw any woman with her husband, she couldn't help but suspect something might happen. However, she didn't say anything about it. She simply suggested that Lu Changxing should cultivate a good relationship with Xiao Xia. After all, the cultivation world is also about personal connections and worldly wisdom. Being able to maintain a good relationship with an inner sect disciple of the Qingyun sect was also a good thing. Meanwhile, on the other side, Xiao Xia had also returned to the Qingyun sect. Senior Sister Xiao. Junior Sister Xiao. Senior Sister Shiyu. Along the way, many Qingyun sect disciples greeted Xiao Xia respectfully, paying respects or calling out to her. Xiao Xia was not only beautiful and talented, but she was also a disciple of the Peak Master of Kaiyun Peak, a nascent soul immortal. Thus, she had a wide reputation within the Qingyun sect. She was the goddess in many disciples' hearts and was well liked. However, Xiao Xia was also known for her aloof and cold demeanor. Many talented disciples of the Qingyun sect sought her, but all were met with rejection. Xiao Xia, with her cool and indifferent demeanor, was like the distant moon high above, unapproachable. But she still retained her previous habit of responding simply to others' greetings. This was another reason many disciples liked her. Xiao Xia did not delay much, and upon entering the Qingyun sect, she flew swiftly towards Kaiyun Peak on her Cloud Veil magic artifact. Arriving at the palace halls at the peak, she stood before a grand hall. Master. Xiao Xia paid her respects in front of the great hall. The doors opened with a bang. Shiyu, why have you returned? Has something happened? Yun Wanshang's voice arose. She knew that Xiao Xia's trip down the mountain for her cultivation experience was to experience the trial of love and to find an opportunity for a breakthrough. Thus, without anything major, she would not return so soon. But now Xiao Xia had come back so quickly, and with her aura somewhat disordered, it made her realize that something must have happened. Reporting to Master, Xiao Xia walked into the great hall and related the encounter with the youth in red. However, she chose to conceal specific details. She changed the account of killing into escaping. After all, Qi refinement cultivators slaying a foundation-building great cultivator was truly astonishing. Especially since the red-robed youth was not a regular foundation establishment cultivator, her master might even know him. Yun Wansheng's brow furrowed sharply as she listened, and a chill enveloped her heavenly features. She had suspected that someone was intentionally meddling when Xiao Xia had been attacked by Red Luan, the old demon, on her way back with the purple spirit liquid. Now that her disciple, Xiao Xia, had been targeted so soon after leaving for her cultivation experience, and the attacker was targeting Xiao Xia and Nu Yun Wanshang, it confirmed her suspicion that someone was targeting her from the shadows. This led her to believe that this person was very likely within the Qingyun sect itself. Shiyu, don't worry, leave this matter to me to handle, said Yun Wanshang, suppressing the anger in her heart. Yes, master, responded Xiao Xia with a nod. Then her mouth curved slightly as she said, Master, I have found the opportunity for a breakthrough on this trip down the mountain. What? Yun Wanshang was taken aback, somewhat astonished. She hadn't expected that Xiao Xia would find her breakthrough opportunity just a little over a month since she had descended the mountain. She knew that the trial of the supreme forgetful love technique was not easy to overcome. Especially since others who practiced this technique usually experienced the trial of love at the beginning, amidst the turmoil of the world, before they continued with their cultivation. Chapter 294. The Master and Apprentice arrived together. Because of the red dust elixir, Xiao Xia had first cultivated the supreme forgetful love technique. Reading Omicron and Novel Cool. Omicron, least now, even if she were to experience the trials of love again, it would be more difficult for her than for ordinary people. Because the supreme forgetful love technique allowed Xiao Xia to remain unfettered and undisturbed by emotions, she found it extremely difficult to be moved by them. She locked gazes with the calm eyes of Xiao Xia. A moment later, Yun Wanshang spoke. Shiyu, are you sure about this? Love is unfathomable, unknowable in its beginning, resting place, bond, solution, track, or end, which makes this love calamity not so easy to overcome. You invest deep feelings, yet you are naive about love, likely to become deeply entrapped. Yun Wanshang voiced such words. Love is unknowable in its origin, indescribable, beyond words. This was her own realization. Now that her disciple was cultivating the supreme forgetful love technique and wished to transcend the love trial, it inevitably worried her as a master. Initially, under Xiao Xia's persistence, she had agreed to a period of 3 years, secretly hoping that Xiao Xia would give up. Master, Shiyu has made up her mind. Xiao Xia's eyes were as clear as autumn waters under the moonlight, and she spoke softly. Her voice was calm yet resolute. In these days she had come to understand the nature of emotions and the meaning behind the supreme forgetful love. But her heart, set on pursuing the Tao and content with dying in the evening after hearing it in the morning, had not a single thought of surrender. It seems you have made up your mind. I won't dissuade you any further, said the master. Yun Wanshang looked at Xiao Xia and sighed softly. She knew that once her disciple made a decision, she would not easily change her mind. At the same time she felt a tremendous sense of relief. She was heartened to see such a strong commitment to the Tao in her disciple. After all, cultivation isn't just about innate talent. It's also about a person's character, temperament, mindset, and understanding, among other things. She had taken on Xiao Xia as a disciple, not just for her talent but also for her temperament and comprehension. Since Xiao Xia spoke in such a manner, she chose to believe in her disciple. To believe she could pierce through the false and truly cultivate the supreme forgetful love. You've spoken of this matter, but is there something else you wish to tell your master? Yun Wanshang's face broke into a smile, and she reached out to touch Xiao Xia's head. She sensed that the other had more to say. Master, the opportunity for my breakthrough lies in an old friend of mine, and it was thanks to his help that Shiyu was able to escape. So, Shiyu wishes to request Master to refine a golden crow elixir. Xiao Xia pursed her lips and spoke. Golden crow elixir. Yun Wanshang's gaze sharpened upon hearing this. She immediately guessed what her disciple wanted to do. Golden crow elixir, second-ranked top-grade elixir medicines. Containing a strand of great sun essence. Immensely beneficial for those with yang constitutions in their cultivation. And this golden crow elixir has another effect. The essence within, coupled with Xiao Xia's moonlight spirit body, could enhance each other's effect. If it is used during foundation establishment, there's a chance to build the Sun Moon Tao Foundation. However, to reach this step, one must engage in dual cultivation with a partner. Please grant me this, Master, Xiao Xia said as she knelt before her silent master. Oh, my foolish child, Yun Wanshang sighed. She helped Xiao Xia up and said, the person owes you a debt of enlightenment and has also saved your life. Naturally, you must repay this kindness. But afterwards, can you truly break through all this? Yun Wanshang questioned. To forget with the supreme forgetful love technique, one must experience the trial of love. The deeper the love trial, the better the effect after shattering illusions. But Xiao Xia's situation also made her worry that her disciple might get lost in it. Master, I can, Xiao Xia assured, her cool and detached face showing a gentle smile. All right, you should go back and rest. I will ask Elder Yun to refine the elixir, and I'll inform you once it is ready. Yun Wanshang touched Xiao Xia's head again, her voice tinged with pity. In this era, the status of a master-disciple relationship was extraordinary. She regarded Xiao Xia almost as her own daughter. Seeing Xiao Xia like this naturally left her feeling incredibly complex. Yes, Master, she will take her leave now, Xiao Xia bowed and withdrew. After Xiao Xia left the hall, Yun Wanshang's expression turned indifferent. Then she transformed into a rainbow light and arrived at Qiyang Peak, a majestic golden magical sword appearing in her hand. Boom! With magical sword in hand, Yun Wanshang slashed fiercely towards the peak's palace. Countless golden runes flashed, causing a golden divine thunder to strike down from the clear skies, alongside her sword. Yun Wanshang, what are you doing? Inside Qiyang Peak, an authoritative and resounding voice spoke out. 9 red fire dragons soared into the sky, forming a barrier to block the sword. What's going on? It's the Qiyang Peak Master. What is the Qiyang Peak Master doing, suddenly attacking our Qiyang Peak? Many disciples of Qiyang Peak suddenly looked up, staring in shock and confusion at the scene unfolding before them. Song Qingzi, show yourself. Yun Wanshang held her magical sword aloof, her expression unfazed. Kaiyun Jr.'s sister, Qingji, is in seclusion. What do you want from her? A middle-aged man donning a red magical robe with a dignified face emerged from Qiyang Peak. My disciple was attacked outside and within the Qingyun sect. Only your Dao partner, Song Qingji, has borne a grudge against me since the core formation affair. Her nature is dark and she always likes to engage in sly tricks behind the scenes, so she must be involved in this matter, Yun Wanshang declared coldly. Kaiyun Jr.'s sister, you can't just make such accusations. For the past days Qingji has been in seclusion. How could she have acted against your disciple? The true person of Qiyang spoke with a less than pleased expression, his voice grave. Chapter 295. The Master and Apprentice arrived together. And at this moment, another divine rainbow flew in, landing on Qiyang Peak and looking towards the two nascent soul immortals. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicronim, least seeing the newcomer, Yun Wanshang also sheathed her magical sword. Looking at Qiyang Immortal, she said coldly, whether it is or not, Brother Qiyang, you could ask Song Qingji. If my disciple encounters any more accidents, then this matter cannot be separated from you and your Qiyang Peak. When that happens, don't blame me for being impolite. After Yun Wanshang had finished speaking, she turned and left without looking back, transforming into a rainbow light and returning to Kaiyun Peak, leaving behind the disciples of Qiyang Peak somewhat dumbfounded. Although among them, some had heard about the grudge between their peak's master's wife and the master of Kaiyun Peak. But that was just what they had heard, rumors? Today's incident let them know that these rumors were true. However, they dared not discuss such matters. Qiyang Jr. brother, you also know Kaiyun's temperament. You can also ask Junior Sister Song about this. If it has nothing to do with Junior Sister Song, then just clear things up with her when the time comes, said the Qingyun sect leader after seeing Yun Wanshang depart. Sect leader brother, how could Qingji possibly do such a thing, and moreover, Qingji has been in seclusion these past few days, said Qiyang Immortal, cupping his hands. That's good then, replied the Qingyun sect leader, not saying more. He transformed into a divine rainbow and departed. Straight away, Qiyang Immortal's face turned somewhat somber as he approached a grand and luxurious hall. Inside the hall, on the bed, lay a woman around 30, her black silky hair coiled into a bun, wearing a green Taoist robe, lying on her side while holding an ancient scroll. Qingji, has the matter regarding Yun Wanshang's disciple anything to do with you? Qiyang Immortal asked the woman on the bed, speaking gravely. Could it be that, in your heart, I would do such a thing? The woman in green put down the scroll and sat up slightly, looking at her Dao companion. I hope not. The Qiyang Immortal sighed helplessly as he looked at his Dao companion's expression. In the blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. Since returning to Qingzhou Mountain, Lu Changxing had kept a low profile. Other than 2 trips to the Red Leaf Valley Market, he seldom left the house. He focused on his cultivation, talisman making, and spending time with his wives. Half a month after returning, the second mistress gave birth to her second child. It was a boy. Fortunately, the child also possessed a spiritual root. But not as good as Lu Qingshan. It was only a 7th grade spiritual root. Nevertheless, Lu Changxing felt very satisfied. He could not help but wonder if the reason Lu Miaohuan's children had spiritual roots both times was related to her consistently good nutrition. After all, there were such mystical sayings in the cultivation world. And during Lu Miaohuan's pregnancy, Lu Yuanding always provided various nutritious supplements. One day in the practice room. Lu Changxing sat cross-legged, exhaling lightly as he looked at the black-red small cauldron floating in front of him. This black-red small cauldron was the magic artifact embryo he had acquired from the red-robed youth. Although this magic artifact embryo was precious and worth quite a bit of money, he found selling it troublesome and preferred to use it to enhance his strength. Thus, he had spent the time he would have used to refine the 9-treasure jade rui on this magic artifact embryo. Now, at last, the refinement was complete and it could be condensed into his body. I will condense this magic artifact embryo into the bones of my hand, Lu Changxing decided as he looked at his right hand, already having chosen the spot for condensation. After all, the skull and spine were relatively dangerous and problematic, not to be considered for the moment, and with the black dragon magical bead in his sternum, only the limbs were left to choose from. Siege. Without further thought, Lu Changxing activated the 100 Refinements treasure body art, causing treasure light to flow through his palm, as if staining it gold. Under the concentration of spiritual power, the black-red small cauldron began to integrate bit by bit with his palm. Just like that, time trickled by, and the entire small cauldron completely integrated into Lu Changsheng's palm, solidifying within his hand bones. On the back of his hand, the pattern of a small cauldron emerged. At the same time, a mighty and overwhelming power began to wash over Lu Changsheng's flesh, meridians and bones. This allowed Lu Changsheng's nearly breakthrough 100 refinements treasure body art to immediately advance under the force of this magic artifact embryo. Boom boom boom. Sounds reminiscent of mighty rivers surging and rushing echoed within Lu Changsheng. The noise grew clearer and more resonant, resembling a divine blacksmith forging a powerful weapon, strong and sonorous. Lu Changsheng's physique shone brighter and brighter, as if a layer of golden film were flowing over his skin, bursting forth with a dazzling radiance like a blood rainbow. After a long while, the divine light within Lu Changsheng's body gradually receded, revealing his flawless and robust muscular frame. 100 refinements treasure body art, 3rd level. Lu Changsheng felt the immense power within him, his lips curved upwards in a smile. Just as I suspected, integrating the second magic artifact into my body was less effective, which is likely because it's only a magic artifact embryo. However, it's still quite good. With the black dragon magical bead and this magic artifact embryo constantly nurturing and refining my body, I estimate that within 10 years, my 100 refinements treasure body art will break through to the 4th level. Moreover, once I have finished refining the 9 treasure jade rui, this speed will increase even further. Lu Changsheng's face was filled with joy as he looked at the small cauldron pattern on his hand. With a slight movement of his mental spirit, the pattern vanished from sight. He then took out his green-face sword from his storage bag and lightly slashed his arm with it twice. Seeing no effect, he chopped with more force another 2 times. Noticing only faint white marks and red welts, Lu Changsheng couldn't help but nod in satisfaction. My physical body is comparable to a high-grade magic artifact. With my physical strength alone, I can now easily slay energy refinement middle-stage cultivators, and even some in the late stage, right? Lu Changsheng stored away the green-face sword, quite pleased with his physical condition. He knew his fist was strong enough to clash head-on with middle-grade magic artifacts. As for high-grade magic artifacts, Lu Changsheng believed there was no need. After all, harming one's own flesh and blood was truly inadvisable. And he had cultivated the 100 refinements treasure body art for many years but had never used it to directly confront others, treating it more like physical training. It's been so long, I wonder how Xiao Xia is doing now? Lu Changsheng couldn't help but think of Xiao Xia. After all, she had said that after resolving her matters at Qingyun's sect, she would return to cultivate with him. 3 months had passed by now. Meanwhile, at Qingyun's sect, Shiyu, this is the golden crow elixir. Yun Wanshang handed a porcelain bottle to Xiao Xia. Thank you, master. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xia revealed a hint of joy. She then opened the bottle and glanced inside. Immediately, she saw a dazzling elixir that looked like a flame alight. It was the golden crow elixir indeed. When do you plan to descend the mountain? Yun Wanshang inquired. She knew that Xiao Xia had stayed on Kaiyun Peak all these days, waiting for the golden crow elixir to be ready. Master, I plan to leave the mountain today. Xiao Xia pressed her lips together, her cool and aloof expression softening a little. Good, if you encounter any emergencies, send word to your master immediately. Yun Wanshang sighed softly as she looked at her disciple's demeanor. Yes, master. Xiao Xia's face broke into a slight smile. She then bowed deeply and walked out of the grand hall, taking flight on her cloud veil magic artifact and leaving Qingyun's sect. Next, she rode a white crane heading towards Qingzhou Mountain. Not long after Xiao Xia left, Yun Wanshang stood quietly by the railing of her palace. Her heart couldn't help but worry about Xiao Xia. After all, the matter of the emotional tribulation greatly concerned her disciple's future and commanded her attention. Soon after, Yun Wanshang gazed in the direction Xiao Xia had gone and transformed into a rainbow of light that also departed from Qingyun's sect. Chapter 296, Yun Wanshang, How Could It Be Him? _1 Red Leaf Valley Market. Reading Omicron Novel Cool. Omicron, least the streets were sparsely populated with pedestrians, hardly bustling with activity. Lu Changxing carried his daughter Lu Qingzhu while strolling through the market with his wife, Lu Miaoga. Little Bamboo, do you like this? Lu Miaoga, her hair piled up high, her features delicate and gentle, held up a small toy to ask her daughter. "Oh." Lu Qingzhu gave it a few glances before responding. "It seems you don't like it." Lu Changxing, observing his daughter's reaction, said with a smile. The little girl was already 2 years old. She was as cute as a button, extremely adorable. It's just that she had a somewhat simple and straightforward personality. She was not fussy or noisy, quiet and well-behaved. Even when Lu Changxing pinched her lightly for no reason, she would just look up at him, her father, with a wronged expression. She was entirely different from the mischievous and active Lu Qingshan. "Isn't that Miss Lu Miaoga? Your child has grown so big already. No wonder Mr. Lu, the talisman master, is so devoted to the Lu family. It seems your family's investments are quite substantial." At this moment, a group of men and women approached from not far away. One of the young men in blue robes, upon seeing Lu Changxing and Lu Miaoga, had a smirk and spoke teasingly. "Third young master, you, are we that familiar with you?" Lu Changxing turned his head, his expression impassive, and spoke indifferently. This young man in blue robes was none other than Yu Ningyuan, the third young master of the Yu family, who had once tried to recruit him at the Nine Dragons market. As for the third young master of the Yu family, he had no favorable impression of him. Or rather, he had no favorable impression of the entire Yu family. After all, based on his conjecture, the assaults on Lu Miaoga and himself during his return trip were very likely orchestrated by the Yu family. When the third young master of the Yu family had come to the Nine Dragons market to recruit him, the incident might have been related to them. All these matters were engraved in his memory. Once his strength was sufficient, he would settle these accounts. Yu Ningyuan saw that Lu Changxing gave him no regard and his expression darkened. But he did nothing more than give a cold snort. After all, the Red Leaf Valley market was considered his family's marketplace. It was still in its initial phase of development. He wouldn't start a conflict within the market and risk tarnishing its reputation. Otherwise, faced with Lu Changxing's slight, he would not have let it go so easily. Lu Changxing. After Yu Ningyuan left, he glanced back at Lu Changxing once more. He knew in his heart that Lu Changxing was no simple character. The man had saved Lu Miaoga before, and he had come out unscathed after the assassination attempts he had ordered. During the battle between the Lu and Bai families that led to the downfall of Red Leaf Valley, Changxing played a significant role. He was aware that the latter was not someone easy to handle. "Changxing, you should still be careful with the Yu family," Lu Miaoga said softly to Lu Changxing. Although the Lu, Bai, Zheng, and Yu families had collaborated to establish the Red Leaf Valley market, the relations among these four families had not significantly improved. After all, the incident in Red Leaf Valley had been quite unpleasant. "Sister Miaoga, I know," Lu Changxing nodded in response. He was now a core member of the Lu family and was privy to some of the intricacies involved. After continuing their shopping for a while, the couple headed back to the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop with their daughter. As for Lu Changxing's own Peace Talisman Hall, he would stop by monthly to check the accounts and replenish talismans. If he was too busy, he would let Lu Miaoga help out. Mainly because the foot traffic in Red Leaf Valley market was still rather average. The monthly income primarily depended on his few supreme talismans, and there was not much to look into. "Little Bamboo, haven't you fallen asleep yet?" Upon returning to the third floor of the spiritual talisman shop, Lu Changxing, thinking his daughter had fallen asleep in his arms, looked down to find a pair of bright eyes gazing back. "Daddy, I'm not sleepy," Lu Qingzhu said in her baby voice. The little head nestled in Lu Changxing's arms, and her tender face gently rubbed against him. "Are you hungry then?" Looking at his daughter's adorable manner, Lu Changxing felt immense satisfaction and love, giving her milky cheek a playful nibble. "Oh." The little girl pondered briefly and then nodded with her lips pursed. "You're hungry and you don't say it yourself, you little simpleton," Lu Changxing chuckled as he heard her. He immediately took out a milk bottle and a jade bottle from the storage bag. They contained spiritual dew, spiritual honey, and milk from spiritual beasts. As a father to over 100 children, he had long acquired a storage bag specifically for storing food for the kids. After mixing the milk, Lu Changxing skillfully fed his child. Children of this age could already hold the milk bottle by themselves. Lu Miaoga, watching Lu Changxing feed their child, lingered with a gentle expression for a moment before heading to the talisman room to make talismans. She had successfully created a supreme talisman last year. But her success rate remained low. Creating supreme talismans was still a losing business. Lu Changxing naturally provided guidance in talisman crafting as well, but the effectiveness of such teachings was limited. It still depended on the individual. This made Lu Changxing realize that teaching the children talisman making and puppetry would be somewhat difficult. You could invest heavily in the early stages, but without natural talent in these areas, it was hard to cultivate skills. As Lu Changxing watched his daughter quietly drinking milk, he suddenly sensed something. He took out a talisman from his storage bag. Faint spiritual light flowed across the surface of the talisman. Shiyu has arrived at the Red Leaf Valley Market, he noted. This was a sensing talisman. Whenever a corresponding communication talisman was activated, the sensing talisman would perceive it. However, this was only a first-grade sensing talisman. Its range of sensing was limited. Therefore, Lu Changxing immediately knew that Xiao Xia had come to the Red Leaf Valley Market. Right away, he went to the talisman room, informed Lu Miaoge, who was making talismans, that he needed to step out, then carried his daughter toward the entrance of the Red Leaf Valley Market. A quarter of an hour later, Lu Changxing arrived at the market exit. He immediately saw Xiao Xia not far away, clad in a white dress, her tall and graceful figure exuding a cold and lofty air. Chapter 297, Yun Wanshang, How Could It Be Him? Shiyu. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M, Lu Changxing stepped forward, calling out to Xiao Xia. When they had parted last, Xiao Xia had suggested they address each other as fellow Taoists, creating a sense of estrangement. Therefore, it was only natural that their form of address had changed. Changxing. Upon seeing Lu Changxing, Xiao Xia, with her cold, proud features, immediately revealed a gentle look in her calm and indifferent beautiful eyes, and the corners of her mouth also curled up. Is this also your daughter? Xiao Xia, seeing the baby bottle in the arms of Lu Changxing who was holding Lu Qingzhu, asked. She knew that Lu Changxing had many wives and children. But she hadn't expected that Lu Changxing would come to the marketplace while also holding a child. It left her really not knowing what to say. She could only say that Lu Changxing truly liked children. Yes, this is my daughter Lu Qingzhu. Little Zhuer, this is your auntie Shiyu. Lu Changxing introduced them to each other with a candid expression. Hee auntie. The little girl, clutching her baby bottle, paused, then spoke in a babyish voice. In Qingzhou Mountain with so many lady mothers she had learned to call out a bit. But her pronunciation was still not clear. Ah, what a cutie. Xiao Xia looked at the little girl drinking her milk and showed a faint smile on her face. One reason was that the child was indeed adorable. The other was love for the house and its crow. Straight away the two of them walked into the Red Leaf Valley marketplace, laughing and talking. However, as the two chatted, is it him? A hidden figure, camouflaged in the void, upon seeing Lu Changxing, revealed expressions of shock, astonishment, embarrassment, anger, and disbelief in her dreamlike beautiful eyes. It was like when Duan Yu learned that the person he loved, unexpectedly, was his own half-sister from the same father but different mothers. But in the end he was not the child of his biological father, instead born from his mother's secret affair. Shiyu's destined lover in her emotional tribulation, how could it be him? Yun Wanshang stood quietly in mid-air, wearing a colorful dress, her expression incredibly shocked, her feelings indescribably complex. Her heart felt as if a bottle of mixed emotions had been overturned. After Xiao Xia had left, she had been somewhat worried about her. She also wanted to see for herself the person her pupil had chosen for her emotional tribulation. After all, this tribulation could significantly influence her disciple's future. As a teacher, she naturally had to take a good care of her. Therefore, she had followed Xiao Xia all the way here, ready to keep an eye on things. But she had never imagined that her pupil's lover would turn out to be the Qi refinement cultivator with whom she had had a one-night stand. This left her brain in chaos, overwhelmed with shock, astonishment, embarrassment, anger, and even murderous thoughts, stunned to the core. A moment later, truly fate makes fools of us all. Yun Wanshang watched the receding figures, sighed helplessly and bitterly, a wry smile on her face. Under the surge of emotions just now, she had even thought of slaying Lu Changxing with a single sword stroke. But recalling the past incident, she couldn't really blame Lu Changxing. The cause lay with her. Moreover, she could not possibly do such a thing. Lu Changxing was merely together with Xiao Xia, what reason did she have to kill him for that? Furthermore, judging by Xiao Xia's demeanor and attitude towards Lu Changxing, it was clear that she had developed feelings. Love is born unknowingly. Once the emotional tribulation was triggered, the rest was up to Xiao Xia herself to overcome. If she, in a fit of rage, were to kill Lu Changxing, it would be like severing her own pupil's future. Sigh. Yun Wanshang sighed deeply once again. Her emotions were complicated beyond words. She had thought that if Lu Changxing were promising enough to reach the foundation establishment within 20 to 30 years, she might give him a chance to bring him to the Qingyun sect for cultivation. Forming a true elixir would naturally be difficult, hopeless even. But with her help and nurture, forming a false core could be feasible. In such a case, the man would be worthy of being her partner. Later, by leveraging the spirit-nurturing energy she left within Lu Changxing, a dual cultivation between them was not outside the realm of advancement. But now, upon seeing that Lu Changxing had become Xiao Xia's destined lover in her emotional tribulation, she could only abandon such thoughts and plans. Even if Xiao Xia were to cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique and forget this romance after passing her emotional tribulation as a teacher, she could no longer entertain such notions. Otherwise, what would be the propriety in sharing a husband between master and pupil? She, Yun Wanshang, being a nascent soul immortal, must she not care for her own dignity? But looking at him just now with his child, has he given up on cultivation? Yun Wanshang thought of how Lu Changxing had been holding a child and her eyebrows slightly furrowed. If cultivators could preserve their essential purity, not breaking their primordial yin and yang, it would provide some aid in their early cultivation. This is why most young cultivators would not consider marriage. He is but an 8th grade spiritual root. Even if he had an opportunity back then and had a breakthrough in cultivation level with me, the possibility for him to reach foundation establishment is extremely slim. Moreover, Shiyu visited Qingzhou Mountain some time ago, and I recall that Qingzhou Mountain is a foundation establishment cultivator family. If this child belongs to that family with mediocre talent, indeed he can only marry and live out a peaceful life. Yun Wanshang muttered to herself. Seeing that Lu Changxing already had a wife and child, she didn't know why, but she felt a pang of disappointment, displeasure. Humph, already married with children yet still so close with Shiyu. Yun Wanshang's face showed a hint of coldness again. No, that's not right. Shiyu said that she managed to escape from robber cultivators thanks to him. Moreover, Shiyu asked me to refine the Golden Crow elixir for his foundation establishment preparations, which means his cultivation level has already reached Qi refinement perfection. The next moment, Yun Wanshang suddenly looked up, realizing another incongruity. Since Lu Changxing had her gift of the androgynous jade. Chapter 298, Yun Wanshang, how could it be him? So just now, she hadn't paid attention to Lu Changxing's cultivation level. Reading Omicron and novel cool. Omicron, lease also because various emotions pervaded her heart and assailed her mind, she forgot about it for the time being. Now that she thought of it, a few traces of surprise and doubt appeared in her heart. Watching the almost departing pair, she quickly followed. Then she looked toward Lu Changxing, her eyes shining brightly, as if starry rivers flowed within them, suffused with the light of dawn. 9th level energy refinement. Moreover, the spiritual power aura throughout his body is majestic, faintly exuding a sharp and overbearing presence. The vitality of his physical body is also extremely vigorous, like a demon beast. This. Yun Wanshang used a technique and immediately discerned Lu Changxing's cultivation level. She couldn't help but feel a wave of shock. It's only been 8 years, right? An 8th grade spiritual root, breaking through from the peak of the 6th level energy refinement to the 9th level energy refinement in 8 years. This speed is barely acceptable, but his entire cultivation, not only is his spiritual power robust, but it also clearly shows signs of magical dual cultivation. Yun Wanshang's eyes were full of surprise and disbelief. If this situation were applied to the talented disciples of Qingyun sect, it would be completely normal. But on Lu Changxing it seemed somewhat inconceivable. Huff. Yun Wanshang watched Lu Changxing, making sure she wasn't mistaken, before exhaling deeply. As a nascent soul immortal, she typically remained unmoved even if Mount Tai were crumbling before her. Even when she learned about Xiao Xia's matters, her eyebrows only slightly furrowed, her expression turning cold. But today, having seen Lu Changxing, her expression changed dramatically twice in a short period, stirring thousands of waves in her heart. While Yun Wanshang was observing Lu Changxing's condition, Lu Changxing also had a prickling feeling as if ants were crawling on his back. Suddenly he turned his head, then scanned his surroundings. But there were only a few pedestrians scattered around. Nothing was amiss. However, Lu Changxing trusted his intuition. He knew that this faint feeling, akin to thorns pricking at his back, must be due to someone observing him. Otherwise, without reason he would not have this sensation. Could it be the patriarch of the Yu family? Because of the previous incident involving the third young master of the Yu family, Lu Changxing couldn't help but suspect the Yu family. He remembered that the patriarch of the Yu family was currently stationed within the marketplace. But he felt that was unlikely. Why would the other party observe him for no reason? Moreover, he had been in the Red Leaf Valley market for quite some time. If the patriarch really wanted to observe him, he would have done so already, not wait until now. He then looked at Xiao Xie, wondering if someone had set their sights on Xiao Xie again. Changxing, what's wrong? Xiao Xie also noticed that Lu Changxing seemed out of sorts and inquired. I just had a faint feeling that someone is secretly observing me. Shiyu, did you encounter anything on the way here? Lu Changxing stopped looking around, maintained his composure, and spoke through a voice transmission. Changxing, are you saying someone is following me? I haven't noticed anything unusual on my way here. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xie quickly grasped the meaning behind Lu Changxing's words and became alert, scanning her surroundings. Is that so? Lu Changxing took a deep breath. He knew that Xiao Xie practiced the supreme forgetful love technique. In terms of spiritual sense, she was even more sensitive than himself. Since Xiao Xie hadn't noticed anything unusual, it suggested that the person was unrelated to Xiao Xie, or perhaps the observer's cultivation level was so profound that Xiao Xie didn't perceive it at all during her journey. Changxing, let's meet up later. At that moment, Xiao Xie paused as if she'd come to a realization, pursed her lips and spoke. She then headed towards the direction of the market's exit. Lu Changxing saw Xiao Xie suddenly leave and was uncertain of her meaning, but quickly guessed that Xiao Xie must have realized something. Alright, I will also take the child back. Lu Changxing nodded in acknowledgement and spoke aloud. He prepared to send his daughter home first to have Lu Miaoge look after her, for it would be inconvenient to handle any unexpected events while holding the child. Quite sharp and vigilant. It seems Shiyu has also guessed it's me. Hidden at the side of the street, Yun Wanshang, with her figure concealed, watched the two separate, her expression returning to calm. She knew her actions had made Lu Changxing wary, causing Xiao Xie to guess that the person watching them covertly was herself. Shiyu, it's your master. To avoid causing her disciple any fear, Yun Wanshang didn't hide it and directly transmitted her voice to her disciple. Master, why have you come? Xiao Xie, hearing her master's voice, also let out a sigh of relief and spoke softly, almost as if talking to herself. But Yun Wanshang could clearly hear her voice. She spoke frankly, your earlier adventures led you into danger, and the matter of the trial by love is of great importance. I'm concerned about you, hence I came to have a look. Thank you, master. Xiao Xie nodded gently, understanding her master's deep concern. Find a place, your master has questions for you. Yun Wanshang continued to communicate telepathically. Yes, master. Immediately Xiao Xie noticed an inn nearby, and promptly went in to secure a room. In such a way Yun Wanshang followed Xiao Xie into the room under the cover of invisibility and then revealed herself. Master. Upon seeing Yun Wanshang, Xiao Xie promptly bowed in a greeting. The man just now, he's the one related to your trial by love, isn't he? Yun Wanshang asked with a steady tone. Yes, master. Xiao Xie nodded. Tell your master about the situation between you and him in detail. Yun Wanshang requested. Chapter 299. The different levels of foundation establishment, from 3 to 6 to 9. _1 in the room of ancient demeanor, reading Omicron in novel cool. Omicron M. Li Xiao Xie recounted to Yun Wanshang the general situation between herself and Lu Changxing. Yun Wanshang listened quietly. During the conversation she inquired about the matter of Lu Changxing already having children. Xiao Xie then expressed that this was also a reason she chose Lu Changxing as the target for her emotional tribulation. Because the supreme forgetful love technique could potentially harm both herself and others in the end. Lu Changxing was very affectionate, with many wives and children. Under such circumstances, even if she were to leave in the future, she wouldn't cause Lu Changxing too much sorrow and suffering. Hearing this, Yun Wanshang's fists involuntarily clenched tight. It wasn't because she was angry at Xiao Xie's thoughts. Previously when Xiao Xie asked her to refine the Golden Crow elixir, she had already guessed Xiao Xie's intention. She was thinking of using it to settle their karmic debts, in order to practice the supreme forgetful love technique. Her anger was due to the fact that upon hearing Lu Changxing had many wives and children, she felt particularly uncomfortable. Recalling how after a night of passion with Lu Changxing, he looked at her with a pitiful and aggrieved expression. At that time she thought Lu Changxing was an innocent and pure young man. But now, hearing Xiao Xia's words and learning that the man had already had a bevy of wives, and was the father of dozens of children, she felt an extreme sense of frustration and dissatisfaction. She almost wished she could strike Lu Changxing with her sword right now. Rest assured, master, I have already spoken to Changxing about this and will explain everything to him when the time comes, Xiao Xia said, pressing her lips together as she looked at her master, thinking that Yun Wanshang was angry with her. Sigh. Yun Wanshang, seeing her disciple like this, wondered whether Xiao Xia could truly overcome her emotional tribulation. She sighed deeply, not wanting to question or dwell on the matter further. Because the matter of an emotional tribulation could only be dealt with by Xiao Xia herself. There was only so much she could help with. You just have to be clear about it in your own heart. If there's anything, you can send a message to your teacher, Yun Wanshang said with a faint sigh. At this point there wasn't much else she could say. She just felt a profound sense of the whims of fate, which had disrupted her own state of mind. Thank you, master. Xiao Xia's eyes revealed softness as she respectfully bowed in salute. Yun Wanshang waved her hand, indicating for her to leave. Xiao Xia bowed again and left the room of the inn. Sigh, fate really toys with us, muttered Yun Wanshang to herself after Xiao Xia had gone, the room now left with only her. She sighed deeply again. Her heart was a mixture of emotions and she couldn't completely settle down. However, this Lu Changxing, a mere farmer's son, was rejected in the Qingyun sect's entrance examination, became a son-in-law in a foundation establishment family, and within just over 10 years he has grown to this extent. It seems he too has had great fortune and a formidable destiny, Yun Wanshang mused, her gaze casting towards the direction of the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop, her expression calm. She had been surprised by Lu Changxing's level of cultivation when she saw it. She had regarded Lu Changxing as nothing more than a cultivator with an 8th-grade spiritual root. Now, having understood more about Lu Changxing through Xiao Xia, she adapted her thinking, feeling it made sense. After all, as a nascent soul immortal, her vision was naturally higher than that of ordinary people. Lu Changxing's performance was indeed astonishing, but in the eyes of a nascent soul immortal like her, it was just so. After all, Yun Wanshang herself, on her own cultivation journey, had achieved core formation before the age of 100, not solely because of her exceptional talent, but also due to having opportunities, a great chance and destiny. To think that in the mysterious workings of fate I chose him, must have been due to some amount of destiny, but alas, fate makes fools of us all, Yun Wanshang sighed softly. For some unknown reason, she felt a hollow restlessness within her heart. She then turned into a rainbow light and disappeared from the inn. Shiyu, Lu Changxing sent his daughter back to the spiritual talisman shop, leaving her in Lu Miage's care, and then he returned to the crossroads. Soon after he saw Xiao Xia coming out of an inn. Changxing, Xiao Xia upon seeing Lu Changxing quickly approached him. Then she spoke up to explain, the one who was watching you just now was my master. She was worried about me, so she also came down the mountain. Xiao Xia said. Your master? Lu Changxing was startled when he heard this. He knew that Xiao Xia's master was a nascent soul immortal from the Qingyun sect. He hadn't expected that this nascent soul immortal would actually accompany Xiao Xia down the mountain, and that she had been secretly observing him. This sent a shiver down his spine. After all, if a nascent soul immortal took a dislike to him, he would have no hope of escape. Did your master leave any instructions? Lu Changxing cautiously asked. He was unsure what this nascent soul immortal's attitude toward him might be. After all, the current situation between him and Xiao Xia might be displeasing to a master. Don't worry, my master was just concerned about me and came to see for herself. Now that she's seen me, she should be leaving, said Xiao Xia, her lips curving slightly as she watched Lu Changxing react. I regret that I didn't get to meet the immortal, Lu Changxing said, feeling relieved upon hearing that. He roughly understood that Xiao Xia's master was aware that Xiao Xia was using him to cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique. Therefore she probably didn't mind the nature of his relationship with Xiao Xia. If that nascent soul immortal knew that I wanted her disciple to bear a child for me, I am afraid she would strike me down with a single sword, thought Lu Changxing inwardly. Usually my master doesn't like meeting people, but if there's a chance in the future, I will introduce you, said Xiao Xia. I was just speaking off the cuff. Lu Changxing waved his hand and said. Although he was curious about Xiao Xia's master, the nascent soul immortal of Qingyun's sect, he had no real desire to meet her. After all, facing a great cultivator with such an immense gap in strength could truly be frightening. Chapter 300, Foundation Establishment's 369 Ranks. He still clearly remembered the first time he had met the Lu family ancestor. His heart was in a flutter. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron, Lis Changxing, is there a second-order cave mansion available for rent in the marketplace? Xiao Xia asked Lu Changxing. Second-order cave mansion there should be. Lu Changxing knew that Xiao Xia was planning to temporarily reside here. He had a second-order cave mansion before, but since he didn't live here much and when he did it was with Lu Miaoge, so he rented the mansion to Gao He. However, if Xiao Xia needed one he could still rent a mansion from the Lu family currently. Immediately, Lu Changxing took Xiao Xia to the Lu family compound in Red Leaf Valley to find the Great Elder. Nowadays, the Great Elder of the Lu family presided over the Red Leaf Valley market. Great Elder, my good friend here would like to temporarily settle in the Red Leaf Valley marketplace. I wonder if our family still has a spare second-order cave mansion for rent. Upon meeting the Great Elder, Lu Changxing greeted him with a clasped fist and bow. You've come at the right time, there happens to be one second-order cave mansion left, the Great Elder said with a chuckle. Then he glanced at the aloof Xiao Xia standing by his side. He couldn't help thinking to himself, wondering where Lu Changxing had acquainted such a girl. Not only was she stunningly beautiful, but her demeanor was also unapproachable. Her cultivation level made even him, the Great Elder of the Lu family, unable to see through her, feeling it enigmatic. He wondered if she could be another Foundation Establishment great cultivator? Then ill trouble the Great Elder, Lu Changxing said, expressing his intention to rent immediately. Considering Xiao Xia probably wouldn't stay long, Lu Changxing decided to rent the mansion for 1 year. Normally, such mansions were rented out for at least 3 to 5 years at a time. But after all, Lu Changxing was considered one of their own. So, they rented it out for just 1 year. And it was for the lowest rental fee. After renting the cave mansion, Lu Changxing bid farewell to the Great Elder. With a token in hand, he led Xiao Xia to the cave mansion area in the Red Leaf Valley market. This mansion was just like the one Lu Changxing had rented to Gao He. Merely 100 square meters, it was spacious and neat. The mansion was endowed with formations and restrictions, making it very quiet. Now, with a single man and a single woman sharing the same room, Lu Changxing didn't pretend to be a paragon of virtue. Shiyu, after not seeing each other for so long, let me see if your cultivation has fallen behind. Looking at the woman in front of him, dressed in white, her face cold and stunningly beautiful, reminiscent of the Guanghan fairy, Lu Changxing pulled her into his embrace. Changxing, after several months, the familiar scent that rushed over caught Xiao Xia off guard, making her whimper and her fair, snowy cheeks flushing with a soft rosy tint. Looks like your cultivation has indeed been neglected. Lu Changxing teased. Xiao Xia's long lashes trembled slightly, somewhat indignant, and she began to fight back. As they went back and forth, Xiao Xia gradually regained her state, matching Lu Changxing's moves. After a long while, Changxing, I have a gift for you, Xiao Xia said, sitting in Lu Changxing's arms, slightly out of breath. Her clear, stunning face, like melting ice and snow, flowers beneath heaps of snow, was breathtakingly beautiful. A gift. Lu Changxing held Xiao Xia in his arms, raising an eyebrow. He immediately guessed that she was referring to what she had said before about helping him with his foundation establishment. However, he didn't hold much expectation for this gift, as he was rather distracted by the beauty before him. After all, a gentleman keeps his tools of the trade to himself and takes action only at the appropriate time. Changxing, this is the Golden Crow Elixir. It will aid your cultivation, allowing you to quickly reach qi refinement perfection. Moreover, contained within the Golden Crow Elixir is a thread of Great Sun Essence, which not only can compensate for your losses in male-female affairs but will also assist you with your foundation establishment. Xiao Xia took out a porcelain bottle from her storage bag. She opened the bottle. Instantly, a fiery medicinal fragrance filled the air, revealing to Lu Changxing a round, golden elixir medicine, with what appeared to be strands of flickering flames on it. Shiyu, isn't this elixir a bit precious? Lu Changxing had never heard of the Golden Crow Elixir, but from the appearance of the elixir and Xiao Xia's description of its effects, he knew it was extraordinary. After all, anything related to foundation establishment was far from cheap. You've saved my life before and helped with my cultivation, What is one elixir in comparison? When Xiaoxia mentioned helping her with cultivation, her face turned slightly red. Back in Rui County City when Lu Changxing talked about helping with her cultivation, it was somewhat justifiable, but now, with the two of them in such a situation, talking about cultivation felt like she was deceiving herself. If you're going to be like that, it would seem too formal. Since that's the case, I'll accept it. Lu Changxing said, not shying away, knowing that a woman like Xiaoxia was actually very independent and didn't want to owe him too much. Before she returned to Qingyun's sect, aside from resolving the assassination incident, she had already thought of how to repay him. If you're not occupied with anything, just consume the Golden Crow elixir now. It'll protect you while you assimilate it, Xiaoxia continued. Okay, Lu Changxing responded, nodding, his expression turning serious. He set down the warm, fragrant soft jade from his arms and swallowed the Golden Crow elixir. As soon as the elixir went down, Lu Changxing instantly felt a massive and pure force spreading throughout his body, warm and very comfortable, but before he could enjoy it, boom! It was as if a great sun had exploded in his lower abdomen, turning into rolling flames, engulfing his whole body, burning his limbs and bones. Hot, hot, hot. Lu Changxing felt blazing hot as if he was on fire. On his flesh and muscles, golden flames started to ignite. Changxing, circulate your energy, Xiaoxia's voice rang out. Then her lips, soft as clouds, landed on Lu Changxing's, and at the moment he felt their warm softness, a profound and icy energy, through her red lips, slowly flowed into him. Yin and Yang merged as one. Chapter 301. The 369 Ranks of Foundation Establishment. Under the washing of this cool spiritual power, the violent and scorching medicinal force within Lu Changxing gradually smoothed out. Reading Omicron and Novel Cool. Omicronim. It also made the intense pain from his burning flesh and blood disappear by a large extent. At this moment, Lu Changxing wasn't distracted by the fairy's fragrant lips. Instead, he began to perform the 7 luminaries' great freedom sword scripture. He swiftly refined the huge and pure medicinal strength of the Golden Crow elixir. He could see the scorching medicinal force of the Golden Crow elixir, under the influence of Xiaoxia's cool spiritual energy, slowly transform into a firebird resembling a golden crow, leisurely wandering through his limbs and meridians. During this process, Lu Changxing not only felt his cultivation level crazily increase. His flesh and blood, meridians and inner organs were also being washed and condensed. If it hadn't been for his cultivation of the 100 refinements treasure body art, with his flesh having withstood thousands of trials, the effect of this force on his physical body would have been even more remarkable. Just like that, time ticked away bit by bit. Half a month passed. Lu Changxing opened his eyes. His eyes were bright and spirited, his body felt unprecedentedly comfortable. He exhaled a breath of stale air. Looking inward at his Qi ocean core. The 7-colored Dan Lake surged like an ocean, its aura robust. At this moment, his cultivation had reached the pinnacle of Qi refinement. With just a few more months of polishing his spiritual power, ensuring it was well-rounded to his satisfaction, he could then prepare for the foundation establishment. Hissed the speed. Lu Changxing also found the speed of his increasing cultivation level to be shocking. After all, according to his own forecast, even with the assistance of elixir medicines, reaching Qi refinement perfection would still take 3 to 5 years. But now, after just a short while, his spiritual power had already achieved Qi refinement perfection. This made him realize even more the extraordinariness of that Golden Crow elixir. Not just the Golden Crow elixir, but also the spiritual energy that Xiaoxia had transferred into his body. Why is this thing still here? Lu Changxing noticed a small golden crow slowly moving within his 7-colored Dan Lake. It was the fiery bird that had roamed through his meridians during the refinement of the Golden Crow elixir. Changxing, you're awake. Xiaoxia, looking at Lu Changxing waking up, revealed a faint, gentle smile. Perhaps due to transferring too much spiritual energy to Lu Changxing, she looked slightly pale. Xiu, you've worked hard. If the platform is riddled with too many flaws and cracks, it not only affects the speed and power of cultivation but also makes it much more difficult to break through bottlenecks and to form a core later on. A Dao platform that rises flawless and perfect is called an unblemished Dao foundation, which offers a prospect of forming a core in the future. Above the unblemished Tao foundation lies the perfect foundation base. It is formed on the basis of being flawless and perfect by cultivating a technique that is in harmony with oneself, or with the help of foundation establishment spiritual objects or treasures that match oneself, allowing the individual Tao platform to ascend to greater heights. I am endowed with the moonlight spirit body and cultivate the supreme forgetful love technique, so if I succeed in foundation establishment, I can forge a perfect Yin Moon Tao foundation. And the Great Sun Tao foundation also belongs to a perfect foundation establishment. Xiao Xie uttered these words. A flawed Tao foundation, an unblemished Tao foundation, a perfect foundation base. Lu Changxing nodded upon hearing this. It was only now that he learned about the various levels of foundation establishment. But he wasn't surprised by this. After all, he hadn't heard the detailed classifications of foundation establishment, but he knew there were divisions such as true core and false core in forming a core. Under such circumstances, differing levels of the Tao platform during foundation establishment was quite normal. I cultivate the 7 luminaries Great Freedom Sword scripture, and when I raise the Tao platform from the Dan Lake, it will be a 7 luminaries Tao platform. According to Shi Yu's description, it should be considered a perfect foundation base, right? Lu Changxing thought to himself. Chapter 302, Purple Mansion Nurturing Divine Technique, Birth of Divine Sense. _1, is my Tao foundation a perfect foundation establishment? Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron M Lise Lu Changxing asked aloud. He felt that his 7 luminaries Tao foundation was most likely a perfect foundation. But he still asked for confirmation. After all, when it comes to foundation establishment, carelessness is not an option. Moreover, Xiao Xie had told him all her personal secrets like the supreme forgetful love technique and the moonlight spirit body. Revealing a bit of his cultivation technique information was nothing in comparison. 7 luminaries sword scripture, 7 luminaries Tao foundation? Xiao Xie naturally had not heard of this cultivation technique. But from the words 7 luminaries Tao foundation, she knew it was at least a top-notch peripheral sect-level cultivation technique. Because only techniques of this level could condense a Tao foundation that matched the technique itself. After pondering for a moment, she said, I'm not certain about this. But before, I noticed that your foundation is robust, Changxing. If you succeed in foundation establishment, your Tao platform will undoubtedly be flawless. If this technique is compatible with you and you have cultivated it without issue, then it is very likely a perfect Tao foundation. Xiao Xie said somewhat uncertainly. After all, she was just an energy-refining cultivator. She only knew so much about foundation establishment because Yun Wanshang was about to do it and had imparted much knowledge and experience to her. She had also read through a lot of information on the topic and was more knowledgeable. But she couldn't draw many conclusions from Lu Changxing's brief description. If I was originally able to create a perfect foundation establishment, would this thread of Great Sun essence have any impact? Lu Changxing continued to ask. So far, he had not felt any drawbacks from the thread of Great Sun essence. But he didn't know if it would have any impact. Changxing, you can be at ease about this. Great Sun essence is a rare treasure of heaven and earth. It will only make your foundation more robust, and it's beneficial for your foundation establishment. It might even take your 7 luminaries Tao foundation to a higher level. Xiao Xie declared at once. She then explained to Lu Changxing many details about foundation establishment, sharing with him knowledge and her experience. For instance, what to pay attention to when striking at foundation establishment, passing through the 3 barriers. How to maximize the success rate of foundation establishment. During foundation establishment, how to choose foundation establishment spirit objects. How to select the foundation establishment spirit objects most compatible with oneself. In addition to the perfect foundation under the compatibility of one's cultivation technique, there are also the Great Sun Tao Foundation, Taiyin Tao Foundation, Gung Metal Tao Foundation, 5 Elements Tao Foundation, 3 Flowers Gathered Atop Tao Foundation, 5 Qi Towards Yuan Tao Foundation. Learning all this information about foundation establishment made Lu Changxing widen his eyes. He couldn't help feeling amazed that even something as simple as foundation establishment had so many intricacies involved. No wonder countless loose cultivators would join a force in exchange for just a bit of insight into foundation establishment, essentially risking their lives for it. Because this knowledge is indeed important. It's greatly helpful for an ordinary cultivator's foundation establishment. and ordinary loose cultivators simply couldn't access this kind of information and had no choice but to commit themselves to a power. If I demonstrated the strength of a cultivator at the peak of Qi refinement, the Lu family would also give me such insights into Foundation establishment. But the understanding and insights of Foundation establishment from the Lu family are definitely not as profound as Xiao Xiye's, Lu Changxing reflected inwardly. He realized once again at this moment the benefits of joining a major force. But the fact that Xiao Xie knew so much was also because behind her stood Qingyun sect, one of the 4 great immortal sects of Jiang country, and she had a nascent soul mentor. Otherwise, an ordinary disciple from an immortal sect wouldn't necessarily know so much. Shiyu, these are the Foundation establishment spirit objects I have prepared for myself. Which do you think are suitable for me? At this time, Lu Changxing took out 5 Foundation establishment spirit objects from his storage bag. Since he was going to aim for perfect Foundation establishment, he naturally wanted to lay the most solid groundwork possible. Although Xiao Xie had told him a lot just now, he still wasn't clear on how to choose the right spirit objects for Foundation establishment. This is Blood Yang Fruit, Blood Lingji, Profound Yin True Water, Heavenly Heart Lotus, Jade Soul Flower. Xiao Xie looked at the 5 Foundation establishment spirit objects that Lu Changxing had taken out all at once and felt somewhat stunned. Although she was a disciple of a nascent soul immortal, she was not oblivious to the harshness of cultivation. She knew the difficulties of cultivation, and that Foundation establishment spirit objects were very precious. An ordinary cultivator would be lucky to find a single one when establishing their foundation. But now Lu Changxing had actually produced 5 at once. And she could tell that Lu Changxing's physical body, blood essence, and mana were incredibly robust. He could completely do without the assistance of Foundation establishment spirit objects. At most, he would need one to assist with the divine sense during Foundation establishment. Changxing, with your robust body, vigorous blood essence, and powerful spiritual energy, you have no need for Foundation establishment spirit objects to assist you. Using Foundation establishment spirit objects might actually affect your blood essence and the purity of your magic aura. For the divine sense barrier, you could use the Heavenly Heart Lotus as an aid. Moreover, I have a secret technique that can assist you during your Foundation establishment, so you don't need to rely on these spirit objects. However, this Jade Soul Flower has a warming effect on the mental spirit, so you can use it now to nurture your mental spirit, which might enable you to directly produce divine sense. Xiao Xie spoke saying this. Although it said one's mental spirit evolves and divine sense is born only upon Foundation establishment, this doesn't mean it's impossible to develop divine sense during the Qi refinement realm. Secret technique? What secret technique? Lu Changxing's eyebrows rose upon hearing this. He hadn't expected that, aside from the Golden Crow elixir, Xiao Xie also had a secret technique to assist his Foundation establishment. This was akin to having his meal spoon-fed to him. It was as if she was really worried that his Foundation establishment would fail or be suboptimal. But the more Xiao Xie did this, the more Lu Changxing felt she did not want to be indebted to him. She seemed intent on paying back her debt for the cultivation assistance and life-saving grace through these means. You'll know when the time comes. Xiao Xie pursed her lips and didn't reveal the technique. After all, she was aware that the method wasn't really a secret technique. Lu Changxing, hearing this, did not fixate on the secret technique any further. Chapter 303, Purple Mansion Nurturing Divine Technique, Birth of Divine Sense. Reading Omicron and Novel Cool. Omicron, Lisi asked how to use the Jade Soul Flower. If the Jade Soul Flower is refined into a spirit-nourishing elixir, the effect would naturally be the best. However, to refine the spirit-nourishing elixir, one also needs to seek other auxiliary materials and request an alchemist to make it. Changxing, you can simply swallow it directly once it's done. Xiao Xie opened her mouth and spoke. After she finished speaking, she seemed to think of something and asked, Changxing, have you cultivated any spiritual training techniques? No, Lu Changxing shook his head. His source for cultivation techniques was all down to drawing lots. But so far he hadn't drawn any techniques for cultivating mental strength. However, within the Red Phoenix True Scripture, there was a secret technique for divine sense attack. But he was incapable of cultivating it. I possess a Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique that can train the spirit and warm nourish the divine sense, which would aid you in refining the Jade Soul Flower, Xiao Xie said aloud. Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique? Upon hearing this, Lu Changxing immediately asked, can this technique be taught to others? It was said that techniques should not be lightly transmitted. Originally, when Lu Yuanzhong gave him the greenwood art, he made him promise not to transmit it to others. Xiao Xia's Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit technique was most likely also learned within Qingyun sect. Within Qingyun sect, there surely would be strict rules against disciples transmitting techniques to outsiders. This technique was bestowed upon me by my master, so passing it on doesn't count as violating the sect rules, Xiao Xia explained. If you teach me, your master won't blame you, will he? Lu Changxing continued to inquire. Though he yearned for a technique to cultivate his spirit, he did not want to cause trouble for Xiao Xia because of a technique. In the Seven Luminaries' Great Freedom Sword scripture, on the second level, after condensing the seven luminary star lamp, there was an effect that helped practitioners to see their true nature, which could be considered as a half-mental cultivation method. My master did not say it couldn't be transmitted. She won't blame me, Xiao Xia spoke softly. Logically, before transmitting a technique, one should inform their master. But under the current circumstances, she obviously couldn't go back just to report this. She also believed that her master wouldn't blame her. Thank you, Shiyu. When Lu Changxing heard this, he stopped refusing. In her opinion, with Lu Changxing's extraordinary talent and being at the 9th level of energy refinement, there was hope he could manifest divine sense. All right, Lu Changxing nodded. He took out an elixir from his storage bag and swallowed it to begin restoring himself and regulating his condition. Once his condition was fully restored, Lu Changxing confirmed with Xiao Xia that there were no issues and then swallowed the Jade Soul Flower, a Foundation Establishment spirit object that aided with impacting the barrier to Foundation Establishment, which could be extremely helpful. One Foundation Establishment spirit object was worth at least 2,000 to 3,000 spirit stones. But now Lu Changxing had directly consumed it. This Jade Soul Flower was cool to the touch, with a bitter taste that carried a hint of sweetness, not unpleasant to eat. But as he swallowed it, Lu Changxing immediately felt a light and agile energy coursing through his body. It was like a breeze blowing across his flesh. Changxing, Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit Technique. Xiao Xia's voice rose, reminding Lu Changxing. Lu Changxing immediately began to circulate the Purple Mansion Nourishing Spirit Technique. He warmed and nourished his spirit with the light and agile energy from the Jade Soul Flower, along with the essence of qi and blood. The air around him was filled with purple mist, with auspicious clouds steaming. In the silent and dark world of his mind, an ancient and weighty purple palatial divine mansion appeared, starting to expel the darkness. Time trickled by. He was unaware of how long it had passed. Boom. Lu Changxing saw the darkness in his mind nearly cleared by the purple mansion, his brain thundering. It made his brow begin to swell. It was as if an eye in his forehead was slowly opening. Chapter 304, Purple Mansion Nurturing Divine Technique, Birth of Divine Sense. Reading Omicronen novel cool. Omicronem, Lise Lu Changxing immediately discovered that the eye on his forehead could see the surroundings. Or rather, this vision was not seen through the eyes, but perceived through the third eye on the forehead and then transferred to the brain. It was even clearer and more direct than what he saw with his own eyes. And he could watch in all directions at the same time, a full 360 degrees without any dead angles. At this moment, Lu Changxing saw a figure sitting cross-legged, eyes slightly closed, face like jade, a handsome and spirited beautiful man. Hiss, is there really such a transcendently handsome man in the world? Lu Changxing exclaimed, oh, it turns out to be myself, then it's fine. After glancing at his own handsome appearance twice, Lu Changxing retracted his gaze and slowly opened his eyes. He also realized that this third eye must be what cultivators call divine sense. He hadn't expected a single Jade Soul Flower to directly bring forth his divine sense. Isn't this a bit too simple? Could it be that because I have lived 2 lives, I am different from ordinary people in terms of spirit, so a Jade Soul Flower directly birthed my divine sense? Lu Changxing speculated in his heart. Without giving it much thought, he shared with Xiao Xia the phenomenon of his newly generated divine sense. He asked if this was the birth of divine sense. I knew that you Changxing could generate divine sense. Upon hearing this, Xiao Xia wasn't too surprised. In her eyes, Lu Changxing was now a genius. Even though his spiritual root was only 9th grade, he had other opportunities and might even possess some kind of spiritual body. Now, at the 9th level energy refinement of cultivation level, taking the Jade Soul Flower and producing divine sense was also normal. Changxing, how far can your divine sense reach? Xiao Xie inquired. About 10 feet or so. Lu Changxing closed his eyes again to sense and then spoke. Only 10 feet, that's already enough. A newly foundation established cultivator usually has divine sense coverage of about 30 feet. Changxing, you don't need the aid of the heavenly heart lotus anymore when you attempt foundation establishment. Xiao Xie said with a tender look in her eyes. This is all thanks to your guidance and help, Shiyu. Lu Changxing also showed a hint of delight. He wasn't concerned about his divine sense being only 10 feet. After all, he hadn't truly reached foundation establishment. Being able to generate divine sense without foundation establishment was already quite good. Shiyu, how is your cultivation going now? At this time, Lu Changxing also showed concern for Xiao Xie's cultivation. Originally, he was supposed to help Xiao Xie with her cultivation. However, for so long, it had been Xiao Xie helping him with his cultivation. Lu Changxing felt somewhat embarrassed. I need Lu Lang's help. Upon hearing Lu Changxing's concern, Xiao Xie's eyelashes trembled lightly. Lu Changxing immediately embraced the beauty and pressed his lips to hers. Suddenly, their breaths flowed steadily like the tide, back and forth. Lu Changxing knew that merely doing this would not have any effect on Xiao Xie's cultivation. Later, to repay the fairy for her help in cultivation, he humbled himself, willing to work hard for reciprocity. Time passed unknowingly, and after a while, Lu Changxing and the fairy ended their cultivation, holding Xiao Xie's fairy-like body tightly. The fairy's ebony hair was slightly disheveled, with strands sticking to her beautiful and bright cheeks. Her cool and beautiful eyes twinkled, brimming with allure and charm as they opened and closed. Shiyu, it seems your cultivation still has a long way to go. Lu Changxing, like a dog devouring the moon, nibbled on her tender snow-white flesh, his words muffled and soft. After tasting something salty, naturally one craves a bit of sweetness to freshen the palate. Xiao Xie frowned delicately, lightly wrapping her arms around Lu Changxing's shoulders, not wanting to move even a finger. The supreme forgetful love technique quickly circulated, calmly suppressing the surging desires. Feeling the stir of Lu Changxing's noble instrument, she pursed her lips and leaned in closer with her head. Lu Changxing was taken aback for a moment. He wanted to say there was no need for such measures. But the words reached his lips and were swallowed back down. Lu Changxing's brows furrowed and relaxed unknowingly. He remembered how the fairy was once high above, like the 9 heavens' bright moon, unattainable, commanding reverence that forbade any irreverent thoughts. Yet now she had descended to the mortal world, exposed to the elements. After a long while, Xiao Xie's fair face flushed red, her black hair cascading down around her temples, concealing her cold and stunning cheeks, her pretty brows slightly knitted. Shiyu, you don't have to force yourself if this is too much for you, Lu Changxing said, embracing the beauty in his arms. I'm just cultivating, it's not a bother, Xiao Xie replied softly, her swan-like neck undulating, her voice trembling slightly. Although she didn't quite understand the matters between men and women, she wasn't entirely naive. She knew that all this time, Lu Changxing had been restraining himself. Thus, she was also willing to take this step forward on her own. Seeing this, Lu Changxing sighed softly in his heart. He couldn't help but think of the past with Lu Miaoge. After he had spent his life force to save Lu Miaoge, their relationship had taken a step further. Back then, Lu Miaoge was utterly obedient to him. Yet she was unwilling to marry him. Now Xiao Xie's behavior gave him the same feeling. It felt as if she was also considering ending their relationship after the cultivation was complete, severing their karmic ties. Lu Changxing didn't ponder over it for too long. He knew these things couldn't be rushed. After all, with the relationship having progressed this far, he was certainly going to marry her. He continued to cultivate with Xiao Xie for several more days. Lu Changxing also remembered that since he and Xiao Xie had arrived at the cave dwelling, they had been cultivating the whole time. It had been almost a month already. All this time he hadn't even spoken to Lu Miaoge. And usually, his daughter Lu Qingzhu lived on Qingzhu Mountain. Only when he came to Red Leaf Valley Market would he bring the child to keep Lu Miaoge company. During this time, Lu Miaoge had to look after both the shop and the child, leaving her no time to cultivate. Soon after, Lu Changxing told Xiao Xie that he must return home and that he would come back later to accompany her in cultivation. All right, Xiao Xie, having completed her cultivation and regained her composure, nodded gently. Seeing her calm demeanor, it was only at times like these that Lu Changxing felt he might be too affectionate. The favors of a beautiful woman are the hardest to repay. Lu Changxing sighed softly as he left the cave dwelling and quickly headed back to the Lu family's spiritual talisman shop. After Lu Changxing left, Xiao Xia's countenance and expression turned cold and detached. Her eyes, like the bright moon in the heavens, carried a faint celestial aura, indifferent and tranquil. Sister Miaoga. Lu Changxing arrived on the third floor of the spiritual talisman shop and saw Lu Miaoga lulling her daughter to sleep. A sense of guilt immediately surged in his heart. Changxing, you're back. Lu Miaoga looked at Lu Changxing, her face revealing a tender and warm smile, her aura gentle as water. Ever since becoming a mother, her once ethereal spirit had softened to a gentle and dignified grace. Sister Miaoga, I was delayed due to my cultivation. Lu Changxing guessed that Lu Miaoga already knew about him and Xiao Xia renting the cave dwelling. He did not conceal anything, explaining what he had been doing these days with Xiao Xia. One reason was he still had quite some time left to cultivate with Xiao Xia. Additionally, Xiao Xia would also be considered the future mother of his child. And Lu Miaoga was privy to many of his secrets. Therefore, there was no need to completely hide such matters. P.S. I've been dragging my feet writing in the evenings recently, feeling muddled. While organizing the text today, I found 2 minor issues and have applied fixes. 1. In chapter 132, I forgot to mention the system's lottery when the protagonist's spiritual root progeny reached 25. Therefore, I simply added a sentence about winning a second-rank skill, Spirit Slaughterer in the lottery. 2. In chapter 139, when the protagonist's 100 refinements treasure body arc broke through to the 3rd level, the magical treasure embryo obtained from the red-robed youth was refined and concentrated into his right hand. These 2 patches are just a few hundred words and don't affect other plotlines at all. Hearing this, Lu Changxing internally said it was as expected. His feelings were somewhat complicated at the moment. If Xiao Xia's cultivation was coming to an end, and she was ready to overcome her emotional tribulations, it meant that his current relationship with her was also nearing its end. Congratulations, Xiyu. When do you plan to set out? Lu Changxing let out a breath, not becoming overly sentimental. A warm smile appeared on his face. In his view, this was not some sort of eternal separation. Even if there was a parting, it was merely to make the eventual reunion all the more joyous. Whatever you arrange. Xiao Xia saw the smile on Lu Changxing's face and also revealed a radiant smile, very enchanting. In that case, let's set off directly. Lu Changxing immediately said. He then walked out of the cave dwelling with Xiao Xia. He told Lu Miaoga that he would be away for a while, and handed her a stack of first-grade supreme talismans. Chapter 306. The first offspring completes the introduction of Qi into the body. Reading Omicron in Novel Cool. Omicronim, Lisa's wife helped look after the Peace Talisman Hall. Upon hearing this, Lu Miaoga didn't ask any further questions. She simply asked Lu Changxing to be more careful and vigilant. Afterward, Lu Changxing and Xiao Xia disguised themselves, concealing their true appearance, and left Red Leaf Valley Market. Upon leaving the marketplace, the 2 roamed aimlessly. They slept in the wilderness, stargazed, admired the moon, listened to the rain, tasted tea, and practiced cultivation. In this manner, roaming without purpose and taking in the sights, they arrived at a worldly city. Disguised, the 2, though still exuding an uncommon aura, did not shine too brightly or attract undue attention. Changxing, I want to eat candied hawthorn on a stick. Changxing, I want to eat mung bean cake. Changxing, do you think those 2 sugar figurines look like us? Walking through the bustling city, Xiao Xia was like a lively and radiant young girl. Gone was her previous aloof and serene fairy-like demeanor. She held Lu Changxing's hand, moving through the streets with delight etched across her face. Now looking here, now there. Whenever she saw something tasty or fun, she would grab Lu Changxing's hand, a look of coquettish entreaty and hopeful expectancy on her face. Just like an ordinary young girl from the secular world. This must be Shiyu's true nature, Lu Changxing thought to himself as he watched her. He mused that cultivation, especially practicing the supreme forgetful love technique, really had a significant impact on a person. Alright, well bye. Lu Changxing amiably responded to Xiao Xia's request. There was not a trace of impatience on his face. He bought her anything she wanted. If Xiaoxia couldn't carry an item, he helped her carry it. If she took a few bites and left the rest, he took it to try. If it tasted good, he had some. If not, it was discarded. The two of them, just like a loving couple from the secular world, enjoyed themselves in the city. Last time, I spoke of how I used my life as an invitation card to respectfully welcome the young master into the martial arts world. The two wandered leisurely to a footbridge. Xiaoxia, upon seeing someone's storytelling, immediately took an interest and pulled Lu Changxing over to listen. Under the bridge, an old man in a robe was speaking animatedly. This prince of the Northern Territory, guarded by Sword Divine, stepped out of the Northern Territory and into the martial arts world, thinking that the sky was high and the birds could fly freely. Yet, this world of martial arts was not as splendid and colorful as it seemed to this young prince, but was fraught with dangers because the moment he entered the martial arts world. Today, this old man will leave the story here. If you want to know what happens next, come again tomorrow, said the robed old man before bowing out half an hour later. A young girl around the age of 12 came forward, carrying a copper basin, clearly expecting money. However, only a few well-dressed people scattered around tossed some copper coins into the basin, leaving the young girl looking disappointed. Xiaoxia, seeing this, gently tugged at Lu Changxing's sleeve. Good performance deserves a reward. Lu Changxing smiled, instantly turned a silver ingot into fragments. He then dropped a few silver fragments into the copper basin. The sound of the fragments hitting the basin drew attention from onlookers. No one expected such generosity. The little girl was stunned. She and her grandfather had never received such a substantial reward while storytelling at the footbridge. Arya, have you not thanked your benefactor yet? The storytelling elder saw this and quickly stepped forward, pulling the little girl to bow deeply, saying, "Thank you, young master, thank you, benefactor." "No need for that." Lu Changxing gently waved off and taking Xiaoxia's hand, turned to leave. Changxing, what that old gentleman was saying was quite interesting. I wonder what will happen to that young master afterward, Xiaoxia said with a giggle, excitedly discussing the story's potential developments with Lu Changxing. As she spoke, she spotted a fortune-telling stall nearby and, once again intrigued, pulled Lu Changxing to have their fortunes told. But such fortune-telling would naturally not reveal any hidden great master from the dust of the world. Seeing Lu Changxing and Xiaoxia as if they were a husband and wife, the fortune-teller offered a bunch of auspicious words. Xiaoxia, listening to these words, was also quite happy. So, the two of them spent more than half a month playing around the worldly city. That night, accompanied by soft mournful sobs, Lu Changxing and Xiaoxia completed their cultivation. Changxing, I'm ready for foundation establishment, Xiaoxia said, draped over Lu Changxing's body like mud in a quiet voice. Lu Changxing was slightly taken aback. He had long anticipated this day. He asked, "When are you planning to undergo foundation establishment?" He knew that when Xiaoxia spoke those words, it meant she had made up her mind and had overcome the tribulation of emotions. 3 months later, on the night of the full moon, she replied. Then we will undergo foundation establishment together. Xiaoxia lifted her head slightly, her beautiful eyes gazing at Lu Changxing, her face suffused with a blush, and she was stunningly beautiful. Okay, Lu Changxing nodded and didn't say anything more. He knew too much talking was pointless. He also didn't want to say too much and affect Xiaoxia's mood or her foundation establishment. After all, in this world, cultivation is the paramount path. Given the current situation of their identities, there was no way he could bring this beauty home to raise children. So, once his own strength was about right, it would be all the same to bring her home as his bride. As for the supreme forgetful love technique, in Lu Changxing's view, if he could melt her heart once, he could do it a second time. Don't you have anything you want to say to me? Asked Xiaoxia regarding Lu Changxing's prompt agreement. She pursed her lips. Overcoming the emotional tribulation is a good thing. Moreover, I will respect your choice, Lu Changxing said softly. Man is not vegetation, who can be without passion? Having spent a year with Xiaoxia, who was as cold as the moon yet lively and alluring, he was very fond of her. In these circumstances, he certainly wouldn't let her go. Chapter 307. The first offspring completes the introduction of qi into the body. Moreover, he was still owed a favor by the other party. Reading Omicron N novel cool. Omicron least thank you Changxing, Xiaoxia pursed her lips as she spoke. She too felt somewhat apprehensive in her heart. worrying that Lu Changxing would ask her to stay. Fearful that under Lu Changxing's persuasion, she would find it hard to cut through her emotional ties, to ascending beyond all affections. In this year of cultivation, she had realized that she had less of the stubborn obsession for breakthroughs. She had begun to grow more sentimental, prone to daydreaming. In Lu Changxing's presence, she would feel joy, worry, sadness, grief, and affection. This had helped her thoroughly comprehend her emotional tribulation, to understand the concept of transcending all emotions. What she needed to do now was to unsheath her sword and sever her ties, to seek the path to the ultimate truth beyond the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Shiyu, where do you plan to go for your foundation establishment? Lu Changxing asked aloud. Foundation establishment couldn't be attempted just anywhere. At the very least, one would need a second-grade spiritual vein with an abundance of spiritual energy. Since he had always concealed his true cultivation level and strength, it was inconvenient for him to undertake foundation establishment in the Red Leaf Valley market. Moreover, the cave dwellings in the Red Leaf Valley market only held inferior second-grade spiritual energy. This spiritual energy was only sufficient for cultivation practice. To attempt a breakthrough to foundation establishment, it was significantly lacking. Furthermore, the breakthrough to foundation establishment involved a large disturbance, which could affect the marketplace's natural spiritual energy. Most marketplaces would not readily agree to host someone's attempt to break through to foundation establishment. Previously, my master gave me a token so that I can go to Qingyun Market and rent a second-order top-quality cave mansion. A second-order top-quality cave mansion is more than enough for us to attempt foundation establishment, Xiao Xie told Lu Changxing. She had already considered this matter thoroughly beforehand. For her own foundation establishment, she could return to Qingyun sect, where there was a third-grade spiritual vein. But Lu Changxing was not a disciple of the Qingyun sect. He couldn't go there for his foundation establishment. 4 ordinary cultivators looking to rent a second-order top-quality spiritual vein dwelling, the only option would be to go to one of the 3 great immortal cities. However, the 3 great immortal cities were far away and exceedingly troublesome to reach. Thus, she considered the largest cultivation marketplace under the Qingyun sect. All right, then we shall head to the Qingyun market. Lu Changxing nodded as he heard this. He too had heard of the Qingyun market. He knew it was the largest marketplace under the Qingyun sect. It was even larger than the 9 Dragons market where he had been before. Such marketplaces typically do not open their second-order dwellings to the public. If it were not for Xiao Xie, he would indeed have no way to rent such a top-quality second-order cave mansion. He might have had to go to an immortal city to undertake his foundation establishment. Shortly after, the 2 of them left the secular world behind and set out towards the Qingyun market. Lu Changxing glanced at the map. From their location to the Qingyun market was a journey of over 10,000 miles. However, neither he nor Xiao Xie were in a rush. They continued on, enjoying their journey as if they were sightseeing or on a leisurely outing. When nearing the Qingyun market, the 2 of them, having disguised their appearance and concealed their cultivation aura, even ran into 3 robber cultivators. But these were only 3 energy refinement late-stage robber cultivators. Facing these 3 robber cultivators, Lu Changxing naturally showed no mercy, earning a little extra on the side. Now at the peak of qi refinement, his strength was comparable to that of a foundation establishment cultivator. Together with Xiao Xie, as long as they didn't encounter a foundation establishment cultivator, they generally wouldn't run into any trouble. Besides, as long as they didn't come across foundation establishment cultivators like the Red Rogue youth they had encountered before, they could take down an average foundation establishment cultivator with their full strength and techniques. After a month's time, Lu Changxing and Xiao Xie arrived at the Qingyun market. The entire marketplace was centered around a precipitous mountain, surrounded by mist, reaching high into the clouds. The mountain was encircled by a basin-like area, bordered by several large mountains, making it inaccessible to ordinary people. Qingyun market. Xiao Xie and Lu Changxing looked at the distant peak, steering their flying artifact towards the marketplace entrance. The entrance was bustling with countless cultivators, much like the 9 Dragons market, with an endless stream of people queuing up. Just then, a surge of spiritual power flowed into Lu Changxing's body, accompanied by the sound of a system notification. Congratulations to the host, your first offspring has completed the beginning phases of cultivation, entering the path of immortality. Bloodline effect. 5% increase in the likelihood of offspring having a spiritual root. Plus 1 lucky draw chance. My first offspring has started his cultivation journey. Lu Changxing was slightly startled upon hearing this sudden system notification before it dawned on him that his son, Lu Xianji, had completed the initial phase of cultivation. The last time he returned to Qingzhou Mountain, his wife Lu Miaoyan had mentioned that Lu Xianji was ready to start cultivating. At that time Lu Changxing didn't have the time, so he left Lu Miaoyan to handle it. As for his son completing the initial phase of cultivation so quickly, Lu Changxing wasn't surprised. Over the years he hadn't visited the White Jade Tower, and aside from his own cultivation expenses, his biggest expenditure was on his children. For Lu Xianji, everything had been of the spiritual kind since childhood, eating spirit rice, taking spirit meals. At the age of 6, he even began spending spirit stones to buy elixir medicines that consolidated and nourished the foundation. His conditions were far more privileged than those of the Lu family's ordinary descendants. If his son had taken as long as he, the father, had, 10 months, to complete the initial phase of cultivation, that indeed would have been strange. I didn't expect that the start of my child's cultivation journey would not only entitle me to a lucky draw but also increase the chances of my future offspring having a spiritual root, although only by 5%, which is a bit little, but this probability can probably still be increased, Lu Changxing mused as he looked at the system notification. He wasn't overly excited about the lottery draw as he had done it many times before. However, he did find the passive increase in his offspring's likelihood of having a spiritual root appealing. After all, even with selective breeding, the chances of his children possessing a spiritual root were not especially high. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.